Chapter 488. What was a biochemical weapon? This was probably the only thing Yang Dingtian had done that made his conscience uneasy after coming to the chaotic world. It was also something that went against the nature of justice. In fact, it was completely unintentional for Yang Dingtian to create such a terrifying thing. Yang Dingtian was a good student and a good science student, so he got into the best university in China. However, his university major had nothing to do with biology or chemistry. Therefore, there was not much knowledge left in high school chemistry. With his knowledge, it was impossible for him to create any biochemical weapon. When he was sure that Qin Chichi's army would attack Cloud Sky City, he had been thinking about using Earth's civilization to create all kinds of weapons. First, of course, were cannons and gunpowder. Secondly, there were many ideas. For example, when he was faced with sulfur, he naturally thought of sulfuric acid. The warriors in this world might be able to withstand the impact of gunpowder explosion, but highly concentrated sulfuric acid should not be able to withstand it. Later, Yang Dingtian used the pitiful remaining knowledge of chemistry in his brain and failed countless times before he finally created sulfuric acid. And it was sulfuric acid that was full of impurities. After distillation and extraction, it was indeed powerful. Of course, he knew that there were stronger acids, but he really could not think of how to make them. This sulfuric acid was made after many failures. Later, when he took the sulfuric acid to an alchemist and prepared to make a large number of copies, the alchemist did not say anything. The alchemist didn't say anything. He directly took out a bottle. Inside it was a transparent, slightly blue liquid. He poured a drop on a thick steel plate. Then, a huge hole was burned through the 2-inch steel plate. Its power was much stronger than the sulfuric acid that Yang Dingtian had made. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's knowledge of chemistry was mocked in the chaotic world. Yang Dingtian asked, "What is this? Can it be made in large quantities?" The alchemist said that this was the gastric juice of the gold-corroding demonic dragon. In fact, most gold-eating beasts had terrifying gastric acid that could quickly melt metals. It could be said that even low-level gold-eating beasts' gastric acid was stronger than the sulfuric acid that Yang Dingtian had made. The only drawback was that these beasts' acid could not be made in large quantities, so there was only a small amount. It was absolutely impossible for them to be used in a large-scale war. Thus, Yang Dingtian's biochemical path failed for the first time. However, he still gave the order to hunt the gold-eating beasts in the eastern training ground. There were countless gold-eating beasts there. After killing the gold-eating beast, he took out all of its gastric juices. After this order was given, Yang Dingtian left Cloud Sky City to handle some matters. By the time he returned, it had already been nearly a month. In Cloud Heaven City, they had hunted and killed tens of thousands of gold-eating beasts. In the end, the stomach acid he obtained only added up to about 500 kilograms. Of course, an average gold-eating beast's stomach acid wasn't that much, but it wasn't concentrated enough and needed to be purified. Therefore, from 10,000 caddies of gastric acid, he could only extract 1,000 caddies. As one of Cloud Sky City's secret substances, Yang Dingtian was the first to receive a report on the 500 kilograms of strong acid. At that time, Yang Dingtian's focus was on the cannons and explosives, so he did not pay much attention to it. Furthermore, he was facing the yin-yang mirror incident at that time, and his mind was in a complete mess. After that, he brought Qin Huayu to the Sky Demon City to prepare for the marriage with the World Society. Then he went to the Demon Territory. The changes in the situation were made known when he returned from the Demon Territory. From Jiao Liao, he received information about the Blood Pupil Demonic Army. Every one of them was a high-level profound martial artist. 3,000 Blood Pupil Demonic Army slaughtered 100,000 soldiers of the Southwest Alliance Army, led by Duan Ruyan, without suffering any losses. At that time, Qin Chichi's crusade had already risen to a strategic level, to the level of a 1,000,000-strong army. Therefore, Yang Dingtian paid unprecedented attention to the Blood Pupil Demonic Army. He also firmly believed that the Blood Pupil Demonic Army of the South Sea Ning clan was the trump card of this crusade against evil ways. They were the most deadly opponent to Cloud Sky City. Perhaps the cannons were not enough to kill this crazy army. Therefore, the biological weapon from before once again entered Yang Dingtian's mind and plan. However, the sulfuric acid he made was too weak. The amount of strong acid extracted from the gold-eating beasts was too little. 500 kilograms might not be enough. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had an idea. What would the result be if he combined the strong acid of the gold-eating beasts with sulfuric acid? Therefore, the alchemist began the experiment. The result was not bad. The combination of 500 kilograms of gold-eating beasts acid and 500 kilograms of sulfuric acid could reach 70% of the gold-eating beast's acid, which was several times stronger than concentrated sulfuric acid. Therefore, Yang Dingtian ordered a large-scale production of concentrated sulfuric acid. Then, he mixed 500 kilograms of gold-eating beasts acid with 10,000 kilograms of sulfuric acid. The result was that the new product had 85% of the gold-eating beast's acid's power. This made Yang Dingtian very surprised and puzzled. A ratio of 1. 1 only had 70% of the gold-eating beast's acid's power. A ratio of 1:10 meant that the gold-eating beast's acid was diluted greatly, but it became 85% of its power. This made the alchemist exclaim in disbelief. Moreover, he named this new product Demon Water. Later, Yang Dingtian and the alchemist discussed the effect of using the demon water on martial mystic realm warriors. The result was that it was ineffective. This was because martial mystic realm warriors already had Qianqi shield all over their bodies, which could prevent any liquid from splashing onto their bodies. Yang Dingtian even used the enemy's martial mystic realm spies as an experiment. He directly smeared the demon water, which was many times more corrosive than sulfuric acid, on the martial mystic realm captives. The result was also disappointing. At first there was a corrosive effect, but very quickly, the warriors' Qianqi directly forced the demon water out of their bodies. The higher the cultivation, the faster it was forced out. Therefore, even if the demon water splashed onto a high-level martial mystic, it could only cause superficial damage. The warrior would use Qianqi to quickly force it out. Therefore, the alchemist suggested that they must add an ingredient that could corrode Qianqi. This way, not only could the demon water easily splash onto a martial mystic realm warrior's body, but it could also directly corrode Qianqi, allowing the demon water to use the fastest speed to instantly burn through the martial mystic realm warrior's body, which was fatal in a short time. However, dozens of alchemists experimented for several days and nights, adding countless poisons, but all failed. Later, Yang Dingtian thought of something. The world's #1 poison, deep-sea Xian poison. This poison was irresistible, and could even corrode Qianqi. However, Yang Dingtian no longer had any deep-sea Xian poison at this time, not even a little bit. But he knew of a place that had it. It was the place where Poison Hand's devil was buried. It was the swamp where he was buried. At that time, Yang Dingtian had a request for Poison Hand's devil, so he gave him 2 types of poisons. One was the blood of the deep-sea Xian poison that he obtained from Shiman Ningning. The other was the blood of Shiman Wuxia that was contaminated by soul-devouring Qianqi. Not long after Poison Hand's devil obtained these 2 types of strange poisons, he was indiscriminately killed by Dugafengwu. However, the deep-sea Xian poison should still be in that swamp of his. Therefore, Yang Dingtian made the best use of his time and flew to the center of the swamp, where Poison Hand's devil died. In that incomparably disgusting, hell-like place, Yang Dingtian found countless things, including a tube of deep-sea Xian poison and a tube of soul-devouring blood. Then, he used his fastest speed to return to Cloud Heaven City and handed the deep-sea Xian poison to the alchemists. At that time, all the alchemists were completely shocked. They held their breaths as if they were on a pilgrimage, looking at the #1 poison in the world, the deep-sea Xian poison obtained from the Naga race. As long as the deep-sea Xian poison was placed in demonic water, it could corrode mystic qi. Martial mystic experts would not be able to resist it. The only problem was that the amount of deep-sea Xian poison was too little, not even half a tael. There were more than 5,000 kilograms of demonic water, so half a tael was useless. Later on, an alchemist suggested a hair-raising method, which was to cultivate the deep-sea Xian poison. This was because the deep-sea Xian poison was actually a living life force that could be cultivated. How was it cultivated? Using living people to cultivate. If the deep-sea Xian poison was injected into a person's bloodline, the deep-sea Xian poison would crazily devour and spread. Finally, it would turn all the blood in the person's body into the deep-sea Xian poison. This was something that had happened before. At that time, Shiman Ningning had only injected her mental energy and mystic qi into the deep-sea Xian poison. As a result, her body was contaminated with a little bit of the deep-sea Xian poison. Not long after, the deep-sea Xian poison spread throughout her body, and her entire body turned green. Later on, when Yang Dingtian was seriously injured by Shiman Ju, she suddenly erupted and released the deep-sea Xian poison, instantly killing thousands of people. Then she disappeared without a trace. From this, it could be seen that the deep-sea Xian poison had indeed grown in his body. The deep-sea Xian poison, that was originally less than 1/10,000th of its original size, grew incomparably strong and instantly killed thousands of people. However, using living people to cultivate the deep-sea Xian poison was undoubtedly extremely cruel and extremely evil. It could be said that it was no different from evil ways. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a very long time, but in the end, he made up his mind to use living people to cultivate the deep-sea Xian poison. As a result, dozens of evil ways spies became the cultivation base of the deep-sea Xian poison. This deep-sea Xian poison was incomparably tyrannical. After less than half a tael of deep-sea Xian poison was injected into the blood vessels of dozens of people. In just a few days, these dozens of people had all turned into poison people. They had become neither human nor ghost. They could not die at all, nor could they live. Moreover, even the air they breathed was filled with poison. In the end, Yang Dingtian personally drained their blood to extract the poison. 35 people took a total of 50 kilograms of mutated deep-sea Xian poison. In the end, Yang Dingtian injected the 50 kilograms of deep-sea Xian poison into more than 10,000 kilograms of demonic water. In an instant, the transparent demonic water turned into a terrifying green color. In this way, Yang Dingtian's biochemical weapon was born. Using 10,000 kilograms of high-concentration sulfuric acid, 1,000 kilograms of metal-eating beast acid, and 50 kilograms of mutated deep-sea Xian poison cultivated from living people. It was mixed into an extremely terrifying and evil biochemical weapon. Yang Dingtian named it Evil Demon's Blood. Then Yang Dingtian did an experiment. He dipped an arrow in the evil demon's blood and had 10 ordinary warriors shoot it at the martial mystic level captive. As a result, the martial mystic level warrior used his weapon to cut down 5 poison arrows and used his mystic skill to blast away 3. He tried to use mystic chi to attack the remaining 2 arrows. As a result, the poison arrow directly corroded the mystic chi and shot into the flesh without any hindrance. Then a hellish scene happened. Yang Dingtian still felt his hair stand on end when he recalled this scene. The martial mystic level warrior's body turned green in an instant. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, his entire body melted and was instantly corroded. In just a few seconds, his entire body turned into a pile of disgusting meat paste. The might of this evil devil's blood was much greater than what Yang Dingtian had imagined, and it was also much more evil. Therefore, this biochemical weapon, although it had nothing to do with biology or chemistry, most of it came from this world's deep-sea Xian poison and metal-eating beast acid. However, under Yang Dingtian's lead and conception it appeared. Although Yang Dingtian had created countless evil demons' blood weapons, he had ordered them to be sealed up immediately. Once this thing spread, the consequences would be fatal. Even Yang Dingtian wasn't sure if using this weapon to kill enemies on a large scale would have fatal consequences for Cloud Sky City. Unless it was a last resort, Yang Dingtian definitely did not want to use this thing. This thing was 10 times, 100 times more terrifying than cannons and gunpowder. However, Yang Dingtian had no other choice now. Without using the evil demon's blood, Cloud Sky City would face destruction. There was no way and no one that could resist the 30,000 blood pupil demonic army. As long as they were within 100 meters of Cloud Sky City, the 100,000 people on the city wall would be killed instantly. Yang Dingtian had no other choice. 100,000 archers, get ready! Yang Dingtian roared crazily. Immediately, all the troops on the city wall changed to the terrifying evil demon's blood arrows. They drew their bows and aimed at the blood pupil demonic army that was flying over quickly. Demon Eagle Army, get ready! Immediately, 1,000 Demon Eagle Army soldiers flew above the blood pupil demonic army with evil demon's blood bombs. All cannons, get ready! Immediately, all the cannons were changed to evil demon's blood bombs. The final battle has begun. Evil ways are exterminated. Fire! 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 Yang Dingtian roared as if he had fallen into hell. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 100,000 evil demon blood arrows shot out like raindrops. They were like a black cloud as they smashed towards the 35,000 blood pupil devil army. 2,000 cannons roared and 2,000 evil demons' blood bombs flew towards the blood pupil demonic army. The Demon Eagle Army threw down the huge evil demons' blood bombs. Immediately, in the dark night, under the moonlight, countless green bombs rained down like a rainstorm. 2,000 bombs flew past the green bombs and flew towards the blood pupil demonic army. 1,000 huge green cannonballs suddenly fell from the sky. Immediately Ning Wuming, who was far away, sneered. The 30,000 blood pupil demonic army's blood-red eyes were filled with disdain and sarcasm. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 30,000 Xian skill flames suddenly shot out. Some went to destroy the bombs from the cannons. Some went to destroy the huge bombs that fell from the sky. As for the 100,000 arrows? Are you kidding? They were not even crystal arrows. There was no need to defend at all. They could just let them shoot at them. The clothes of the Blood-Eye demonic army were all made of heavenly silkworm demonic silk and other dark materials. Mere arrows could not damage them at all. They still succeeded. 2,000 bombs were shattered by the Xian skill when they were still tens of meters away. The bombs that fell from the sky were also shattered. But the strange thing was that these bombs did not explode into flames. Instead, they exploded into countless green liquids. Then, something even stranger happened. 100,000 arrows, because they did not care, did not stop them. It shot straight into their formation. 100,000 arrows rained down like a torrential downpour, hitting almost everyone. They did not care at all, and let the arrows hit their bodies. Because these arrows could not penetrate their cloaks, not even a strand of hair. But these arrows easily tore open the indestructible Xian demon cloaks and pierced into their flesh. The blood pupil demonic army paused for a moment, and then released their Xian Qi to force the arrows out. But a terrifying power, a demonic power, instantly tore their Xian meridians and corroded their Xian Qi. Then, a terrifying cloud of smoke suddenly emitted from their bodies. Their bodies, their Xian Qi, their souls. In an instant, they melted and disappeared. Then they did not know anything. Even if they were not hit by the poisonous arrows, they quickly melted and disappeared after being splashed by the terrifying green liquid. Everyone on the city wall, as well as the dozen or so grand masters behind them, also saw this horrifying and hair-raising scene. 100,000 arrows smashed into the 30,000 blood pupil demonic army. The 30,000 blood pupil demonic army suddenly stopped advancing. Immediately after, a cloud of white smoke suddenly emerged. A huge hole suddenly appeared in the bodies of the countless blood-eye demonic army soldiers. Their internal organs could be seen clearly. The internal organs of the blood pupil demonic army were not bright red, but a demonic blue. But this was not important. All the blood pupil demonic army melted and dissolved. Bang, bang, bang. Without a sound, the blood pupil demonic army that was floating in the air suddenly fell and knelt on the ground. Countless pairs of eyes that were like ghost flames were extinguished. Then, their entire bodies disappeared without a trace and turned into a pile of mud. Only 30,000 broken cloaks were left on the ground. After a while, even the broken cloaks disappeared without a trace. Just like that, under everyone's fearful and trembling gazes, the heaven-defying, invincible 30,000 blood pupil demonic army disappeared from the face of the earth. Ning Wuming's body started to tremble and tremble. He was always gentle, refined, and carefree. But at this moment his eyes were trembling. How is this possible? Was this a deep nightmare? The 30,000 invincible blood pupil demonic army disappeared in an instant. They died more mysteriously and completely than the demon wolf army and the golden eagle army. Xiao Wanjie and Qin Wanchou, who were far away, were completely stunned. They looked at young Ding Tian with a strange and even fearful gaze. Who is the evil ways? Young Ding Tian was on the city wall and knelt down slowly towards the sky. Today's killings, the evil killings, are all my sins alone. I hope that if the heavens want to vent their anger, they will vent their anger on Yang Ding Tian alone. Today's evil killings are very painful for me, but I will definitely not regret it. Maybe in the future, I will repent for today's sins, but that will be a time of peace. At this moment, I only have endless killings. After speaking, Yang Ding Tian stood up and slowly pulled out his emperor-grade soul sword. He walked in front of the revived Dongfang Minmi and said softly, "Master, let us fight together today." "All right, let us fight together today. Today, let us create history here." Yang Ding Tian looked at Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and even Yao Rao. He didn't know when she had arrived. "Everyone, my brothers, my sisters, my lovers. Kill," Yang Ding Tian ordered. 1 martial grandmaster and 5 martial grandmasters, or close to martial grandmasters, rushed out of the city wall and towards the battlefield outside. The martial grandmaster puppet led more than 10 martial grandmasters of evil ways. Their eyes were blazing with fire as they charged forward crazily. The final battle had finally arrived. Martial grandmasters against martial grandmasters. Martial grandmasters against martial grandmasters. 1 martial grandmaster against another martial grandmaster. 5 martial grandmasters, close to martial grandmasters, against more than 10 martial grandmasters. The final battle, the final massacre. Chapter 489. Yang Dingtian's side had 6 people. Ning Wuming's side had 20 people. In terms of strength, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. The two sides flew 1,000 meters in the air, getting closer, closer, and closer. Finally, when they were 100 meters apart, they stopped. Ning Wuming said indifferently, "Yang Dingtian, you have really made me feel a piercing pain. The 30,000 blood pupil demonic army has really made me give it my all. You have already made history. Even if you fail completely in the future, you have already shocked the world. Because with your own strength, you have destroyed nearly 1 million of our army." "Well said," Yang Dingtian said. "However, your fate of failure and destruction is still unavoidable." Ning Wuming said indifferently, "You are too noble. You should have used the 2,000 demon dragon army and 1,000 demon vulture army, as well as all the experts of martial ancestor realm and above to exhaust us. This way, you would still have the strength to fight." "That's right. As mentioned before, every master's Xian Qi was limited, and so was their cultivation. As long as they continued to exhaust them, even if there were more than 10 masters, they would be completely exhausted. If Yang Dingtian had hardened his heart and sent out all the martial ancestor realm experts of the demon dragon army, demon vulture army, and cloud sky city, there would be a few thousand of them. It would be enough to exhaust all the masters in front of him, or even kill half of them. Of course, in that case, Cloud Sky City would also suffer heavy casualties. However, Yang Dingtian had decisively brought only a few masters and close to masters to participate in the battle. Even the martial ancestor realm experts were not allowed to participate. Therefore, they were facing a one-sided disadvantage. Yang Dingtian's side had 1 martial ancestor against another martial ancestor. 5 masters and close to martial ancestor realm. Yes, 19 masters. Therefore, Yang Dingtian, your destruction is still unavoidable." Ning Wuming said, "Here, I want to make it clear to you. After you are destroyed, you will definitely not die. He should be crippled of his cultivation and imprisoned for the rest of his life. As for Qin Huayu, because Qin Wanchou didn't perform well today, he will have the same ending as you." Zhu Hongxue was captured and imprisoned in the Black Heaven sect because of his ignorance. As for Song Chunhua, she would directly become Master's lover. Of course, because you've angered my wife. One of your wives must be executed by 1,000 cuts. Qin Jiaojiao is probably the least loved by you, so I'll choose her. The rest of your women were all taken as concubines or concubines. You don't have any objections to this, do you? The idea is not bad. Yang Dingtian said. Why don't you listen to my opinion on how to deal with you? It's much simpler. You will be executed by 1,000 cuts. Qin Chichi, execute her with 1,000 cuts. Ning Wuming glanced at Yang Dingtian and said, Yes, I really can't understand your naivety. He really couldn't understand Yang Dingtian. After eliminating the Evil Ways army and the Blood Pupil demonic army, Yang Dingtian could create one trump card after another. However, these trump cards were useless against a master stage expert. 5 masters, close to master rank, against 19 masters. And Yang Dingtian actually wanted to win. There was nothing more ridiculous than this in the world. Yang Dingtian turned and looked in Qin Wancho's direction and shouted, Sect Master Qin, are you coming over? Come over. Qin Huayu also couldn't help but look at Qin Wancho. Qin Wancho was a true great grandmaster. Once he joined, it could be said that Yang Dingtian's side immediately gained an overwhelming advantage. Ning Wuming also looked at Qin Wancho and smiled. Sect Master Qin, you should continue to sit on the fence. Since you've already been observing for a day, why don't you just watch until the end? Ning Wuming's ridicule undoubtedly made Qin Wancho furious. However, Ning Wuming's next sentence made him feel cold all over. That's right, Sect Master Qin. Around this time, the lives of your remaining children will be in danger. If you're hot-blooded and make an impulsive decision, you'll probably see their corpses neatly placed in front of your door when you return. Ning Wuming said indifferently. Qin Wancho's heart was filled with boundless anger and a trace of suspicion. This time, he had already hidden his remaining children in a place that even Xiao Ruhan didn't know about. He didn't believe that Ning Wuming would know. They were hidden 200 feet below the brothel. They were indeed hidden deep enough, Ning Wuming said indifferently. Instantly, Qin Wancho felt a chill run down his spine. Only he knew about this place. How did Ning Wuming know about it? Then Qin Wancho laughed loudly. All right, then I'll watch the battle from here. Come and tell me when the winner has been decided. Ning Wuming spread his hands towards Yang Dingtian and said, There, your hopes are dashed. Then, Ning Wuming seemed to have remembered someone and said to Qiu Wanjia, Oh right, Manor Lord Qiu. You can do whatever you want. If you want to come, then come. At that moment, Qiu Wanjia only felt endless humiliation. Ning Wuming's meaning was very clear. Qin Wancho couldn't join Yang Dingtian's side. However, Qiu Wanjia, you're only a grandmaster. You can do whatever you want. This was blatant disdain, looking down on Qiu Wanjia from the back, looking down on him. However, since Qin Wancho didn't make a move, Qiu Wanjia naturally didn't dare to make a move. He only laughed loudly. You guys fight, you guys fight. Ning Wuming said to Yang Dingtian. Look, you guys don't even have your last hope. Yang Dingtian said. Then let's start. Ning Wuming smiled and said. Aren't you going to be emotional? This is probably the first time in 200 years that so many grandmasters and great-grandmasters are fighting. Yang Dingtian waved at Song Chunhua and said, Chunhua, come behind me. We'll form a team of 2. Yes. Song Chunhua came behind Yang Dingtian and leaned her back against Yang Dingtian as they floated in the air. In this battle, almost everyone had the undying gold medallion. Qin Huayu wouldn't die because he was Qin Wancho's son. Zhu Hongxue wouldn't die because he was Zhu Qingzhu's son. As for Yao Rao, no one would want to kill her because she would transform right before she died. Yang Dingtian wouldn't die either. The other party wouldn't kill him. At most, they would cripple his martial arts, imprison him for life, and humiliate him for life. Of course, once they lost, Cloud Heaven City would be destroyed. Yang Dingtian's wife and relatives would become slaves. This was definitely much more painful than death. However, the only one who would die right now was Song Chunhua. Ning Wuming had also said that he would capture Song Chunhua and use her as a slave. However, when the battle reached a certain point, things wouldn't be clear anymore. Yang Dingtian, I know that you used Lung Qingqian's corpse and the demon spirit heart to make a battle puppet demon. A great grandmaster battle puppet demon. Coincidentally, I also have a battle puppet demon in my hands. It's Qin Chichi's grandfather. If I remember correctly, Lung Qingqian had just broken through to the great grandmaster realm not long ago. When Qin Wanqiu killed Qin Chichi's grandfather, he was already a 2-star great grandmaster. Therefore he was still slightly stronger. Ning Wuming said. Moreover, we also did some things to him. That's why he's become like this, neither human nor ghost. He's also much stronger when fighting. He should be stronger than an intermediate great grandmaster. Wow, then he's indeed much stronger, Yang Dingtian said. When great grandmasters fight, it's too scary. Why don't we let these 2 great grandmaster puppets fight further away? They fight theirs and we fight ours. We don't want to be accidentally scratched by them and lose our lives. That would be too much of a loss. You have to know that battle puppet demons don't have brains. When they fight, they don't care so much, Ning Wuming said with a smile. Alright, let's fight 1 li to the east, Yang Dingtian said. Alright, Ning Wuming said. Then, Qin Chichi gave the order from afar. The great grandmaster battle puppet demon, Qin Zhong, walked 1 li to the east. Its incomparably huge body was covered in armor. Every step it took was a full 2 meters. With every step he took, a deep crack would appear on the ground, and the ground beneath his feet would be completely burned red. After the great grandmaster battle puppet demon Qin Zhong was in position, Dongfang Minmi, who was covered in a black robe, flew over lightly. Wow, your battle puppet demon is quite unique, Ning Wuming said with a smile. This person seemed to always be smiling. Even if he wanted to kill your entire family, he would still be smiling. It was as if there was no hostility at all. Shall we begin? Yang Dingtian said. Alright, let's begin. Ning Wuming said to Lung Yanmei. Pavilion Master Lung, I won't participate in this boring battle. I'll leave it to you. Remember, you can trample on them, but don't kill them. Yang Dingtian said to the people behind him. Follow the original plan. The original plan? What was the original plan? Before Dongfang Minmi won, they couldn't be killed, destroyed or captured. They would risk everything and wait for Dongfang Minmi to defeat the battle puppet demon Qin Zhong. The dozen or so grandmasters in front of them would all be left to Dongfang Minmi. In short, as long as they could hold on until Dongfang Minmi won, it would be a victory. Otherwise, it would be a failure. Of course, this was also very difficult. Yang Dingtian's side only had 5 grandmasters, while the other side had a total of 18. Although Dongfang Minmi had been resurrected, it was his soul and consciousness that had been resurrected. His body was still Lung Qingqian's. Only his sea of qi and xian qi cultivation were still Lung Qingqian's. Lung Qingqian had just broken through to the great grandmaster realm. As for the battle puppet demon Qin Zhong, after the evil transformation, its combat power had surpassed that of an intermediate great grandmaster. Therefore this battle wouldn't be easy. Lung Yanmei looked at Yang Dingtian, her eyes filled with hatred. She said coldly, Yang Dingtian, I'm not as gentle as young Lord Ning. I'll let you have a taste of hell. Of course, she hated Yang Dingtian to the core. It was because of Yang Dingtian that her little master, Qin Chichi, lost everything in an instant. From then on, she could only become Ning Wuming's vassal. It was because of him that Sky Phoenix Pavilion's army was wiped out in a short time. Of course, Yang Dingtian really didn't notice when Sky Phoenix Pavilion's army of 20,000 was wiped out. When the cannons were wildly firing, Sky Phoenix Pavilion's army and Ning Clan's army, who were supervising the battle, were completely overwhelmed by the barbarian army. Fight! Ning Wuming floated in the air and waved his hand fiercely. Boom! The 2 great grandmasters were the first to fight. Dongfang Minmi and the battle puppet demon Qin Zhong instantly collided with each other. They didn't use any xian skills, but the most direct collision. An earth-shattering sound was heard, as if it was going to tear apart the eardrums. The swords of the 2 great grandmasters instantly slashed together. When the 2 swords collided, a bright brilliance shot up to the sky. Boom! The ground under their feet instantly collapsed and burned fiercely. Dongfang Minmi's body suddenly flew hundreds of meters away like a cannonball. Sure enough, the battle puppet demon Qin Zhong's Xian Qi cultivation was superior. At the same time, the 15 great grandmasters led by Leng Yinmei launched a fierce attack on Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua had a total of 5 great grandmasters. Boom! 5 flaming sword rays instantly blasted out. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue formed a pair. Similarly, 5 great grandmasters surrounded them. As a high-level great grandmaster, Yao Rao was surrounded by 8 great grandmasters. The enemy's 18 great grandmasters attacked in unison. They didn't use any fancy moves or Xian skills, but the most direct Xianqi attack. In an instant, 3 flaming rays shot up to the sky and engulfed Yang Dingtian and the others. With Yang Dingtian's cultivation, he couldn't even hold on for 3 seconds, even with Song Chunhua's help. However, when the terrifying Xianqi sword flames rushed toward Yang Dingtian, they didn't instantly tear apart his Xian meridians and sea of qi. Instead, they were blocked by him. All of the flames were fiercely resisted by him. The reason was because Yang Dingtian wore the interspatial ring, which could withstand 3 great grandmasters' attacks. He couldn't resist for long, at most 3 or 4 seconds. However, it was enough. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yang Dingtian used the Xian fire to burn the devil's blood that contained the mutated deep-sea Xian poison, and blasted the 5 opponents. The 5 great grandmasters were shocked. They didn't expect that Yang Dingtian's Xian meridians couldn't be instantly destroyed by their Xian qi flames, but he could still fight back. However, they immediately thought of Yang Dingtian's interspatial ring, which was no big deal. As for Yang Dingtian's Xian fire, they didn't care about it at all. They didn't even place Yang Dingtian in their eyes. Yang Dingtian's combat cultivation had yet to surpass the master realm. Suddenly, the 5 of them quickly set up their Xian qi energy shields to resist the Xian fire. Boom! Yang Dingtian's Xian fire blasted the 5 great grandmasters' Xian qi shields. Suddenly, something that made their hair stand on end happened. An absolutely dark, absolutely evil energy instantly tore apart their energy shields. Then it crazily drilled into their bodies. Immediately after, they felt that their profound energy and their bodies were rapidly corroding and disappearing. How could this be? How could this be? The 5 great grandmasters were extremely shocked. They immediately thought of the devil's blood that Yang Dingtian used to destroy the blood pupil demonic army. However, whoever touched that thing would be done for. Yang Dingtian couldn't possibly use it as an energy attack, because he would be poisoned first. Deep sea Xian poison. Even Xian qi would be poisoned. Why wasn't Yang Dingtian afraid? Because he had the dark Xian fire. Even if he was poisoned instantly, the dark Xian fire could instantly devour the deep sea Xian poison's energy. Suddenly, the 5 great grandmasters used their fastest speed. Swoosh! Sharp blades slashed across their chests and cut off all the parts that were corroded by the devil's blood. Immediately blood dripped. Yang Dingtian was also stunned. As expected of great grandmasters, they were ruthless enough. Ning Wuming looked at everything in the air, and was also extremely shocked. Then he coldly shouted, "Idiot, don't defend, attack with all your strength. If you use Xian qi outside your body to attack, you won't be poisoned." Xian qi outside the body attack. That was directly let the Xian qi energy burst out in an instant. After the attack, immediately cut off the connection with one's body. This way, one wouldn't be infected by the deep sea Xian poison. Boom 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 boom. Yang Dingtian's Xian fire that contained the deep sea Xian poison crazily blasted out. On the other side, because the 5 great grandmasters didn't dare to kill Zhu Hongxue, Zhu Hongxue used the Great Thunderous Fire Shield to protect himself and Qin Huayu. Qin Huayu used the Earth-level Xian Fire to desperately add energy to the Great Thunderous Shield. The 5 purple-robed Great Grandmasters were afraid of hurting Zhu Hongxue, so they only dared to increase their attacks bit by bit, trying to tear the Great Thunderous Shield in the most gentle way. Therefore, Zhu Hongxue and Qin Huayu's Great Thunderous Shield was on the verge of collapse, and hadn't been completely destroyed. Once it was destroyed, the 2 of them would basically be captured without putting up a fight. At this moment, Yang Dingtian took this opportunity to crazily bombard the 5 great grandmasters with his poisonous Xian fire. Immediately, The 5 great grandmasters hurriedly released their Xian Qi flames to disperse Yang Dingtian's poisonous Xian fire. Zhu Hongxue and Qin Huayu immediately took the opportunity to strengthen the great thunderous shield. Originally, the most dangerous Yao Rao had to face the 8 great grandmasters. Although she was currently at a disadvantage, her speed was too shocking. She escaped like lightning, causing the 8 great grandmasters to chase her all over the place. Change direction. 3 against Yang Dingtian, 2 against Song Chunhua. Ning Wuming ordered. Immediately, the 5 purple-robed great grandmasters scattered. Boom boom. The 3 Xian fire swords slashed ferociously. For the second time, Yang Dingtian blocked them with his interspatial ring. As for Song Chunhua, she released the heavenly phoenix fire and fiercely clashed with the swords of the 2 great grandmasters. Boom. There was a loud sound. Song Chunhua's delicate body shook, and she violently vomited blood. Boom boom boom. The 3 great grandmasters released the 3rd wave of attacks on Yang Dingtian. The interspatial ring could withstand the last attack. Immediately after, Song Chunhua faced the 2nd wave of attacks from the 2 great grandmasters. Puff! Her body flew out dozens of meters away and fell to the ground. The 2 great grandmasters' faces were pale, and the corners of their mouths were bleeding. Song Chunhua was a 3-star great grandmaster, and she had the heavenly phoenix fire, but she was still not a match for the 2 3-star great grandmasters. Boom boom boom. At the same time, Zhu Hongshue's great thunderous shield was easily torn apart. The 5 great grandmasters suddenly flew into the air, and the huge palms in their hands suddenly pressed down. Boom! There was a loud sound. The ground where Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue were standing collapsed in an instant. The 2 people were pressed to the ground by the 5 huge palm imprints, and they could not move at all. Yao Rao, on the other hand, was still running around like lightning. The 8 great grandmasters who were chasing her looked cold. Radiant sword array. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In an instant 8 sharp swords flew into the sky like meteors. Then, they turned into countless rays of light and crazily fell. Instantly, they were inserted in every place around Yao Rao, blocking every path of her. Then the 8 great grandmasters stopped in an instant, completely trapping Yao Rao in the middle. The 8 sharp swords formed a sharp blade prison, making her unable to move at all. More than a dozen great grandmasters, after all, had an overwhelming advantage. The battle between the 2 great grandmasters was still the most direct and the most explicit. It was completely a collision of strength and energy. Dongfang Minmi had been hit and sent flying thousands of meters away. Boom. There was an earth-shattering sound. The puppet war demon Qin Zhong's last fatal trick had sent Dongfang Minmi hundreds of meters into the ground. The ground that the 2 occupied for more than 10 miles was fiercely torn apart, and countless areas of the ground were burned red. At this time, the only one standing on the entire battlefield was Yang Dingtian. I said that you are destined to be destroyed. Now you are the only one standing. And this is with the help of the so-called interspatial ring. Ning Wuming said indifferently. Now, the 3 energy defenses of the interspatial ring have been used up, and it will take a long time to recover. The 4th wave of attack is about to come. What are you going to do? Yang Dingtian gently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, Do what you have to do. Ning Wuming said to the 3 purple-robed great grandmasters, Don't show any mercy, completely destroy his Xian veins. Yes, the 3 great grandmasters gathered and released the 4th wave of Xian Qi flame attack, which was also the last wave. Yang Dingtian no longer had the interspatial ring. Yang Dingtian suddenly activated the dark mystic flame and muttered to himself, Now is the time to counterattack. Dark mystic flame, this is the first time you have seen the light of day. Looking at the Xian Qi flame that was shooting towards him, Yang Dingtian opened his palm abruptly, and the black raging flames instantly engulfed the enemy's raging flames. At the same time, Dongfang Minmi, who had been sent into the ground, suddenly flew up into the sky. It's about time. I have finally completely suppressed this body and this damned heart. Qin Zhong, thank you so much for this violent beating. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. However, it's time to end this battle. Then he suddenly pulled out his sword. Roar! A ray of light that was hundreds of meters tall lit up the entire dark sky, piercing through the heavens, and then suddenly slashed towards the puppet war demon Qin Zhong. Sword Soul? It was actually a sword soul. Chapter 490. Dongfang Minmi's suppression of the brutal power of the demon spirit heart was smoother than expected, but it also took longer than expected. About the first 10 hours, he successfully suppressed 95% of it. But for the next 10 days, he was unable to suppress the last 5%. What were the consequences of not completely suppressing the demon spirit heart? There would be two forces fighting for control of this body. This way, Dongfang Minmi would not be able to completely control this body. Of course, there was another way that went very smoothly. That was to cleanse the extremely weak and fragmented remnant consciousness left behind by Lung Qingchen in his mind. First of all, Lung Qingchen was already dead, and his soul had already been extracted by Yang Dingtian. Only a very small amount of fragmented data was left in the depths of his brain. Because of the soul aggregation, Dongfang Minmi did not take too long to completely occupy Lung Qingchen's brain. However, it was a very, very long process to completely suppress the brutal power of the demon spirit heart. Of course, without completely suppressing the demon spirit heart, it basically did not have much effect on the battle. The only thing that had a fatal effect was the sword soul. After Dongfang Minmi occupied Lung Qingchen's body, he also completely inherited his Xian meridians and Qi Si. Lung Qingchen's talent was not as good as Dongfang Minmi's, so he had just broken through to the Great Grandmaster realm. This also meant that Dongfang Minmi's current cultivation had only broken through to the Great Grandmaster realm. Of course, there was also a very fortunate point that Lung Qingchen and Dongfang Minmi were from the same sect, and the cultivation techniques they learned were almost the same. Therefore, when he inherited Lung Qingchen's body, he also inherited almost 100% of his cultivation. However, this cultivation was still not enough. Therefore, Dongfang Minmi thought of the sword soul. More than 10 years ago, the reason why Dongfang Minmi was recognized as the world's #1 expert was because he cultivated the sword soul. He cultivated the sword soul 10 years earlier than Shimen Wuya. Although the sword soul he cultivated was not as powerful as Shimen Wuya's sect origin sword. However, Dongfang Minmi's cultivation at his peak was close to that of an 8-star martial grandmaster. Although his sword soul could not compare to his cultivation, it had also reached the level of a 5-star martial grandmaster. Therefore, as long as Dongfang Minmi successfully summoned his sword soul, this battle would be a piece of cake. Therefore, 5 days ago, Dongfang Minmi stopped suppressing the remnants of the devil spirit heart, stopped completely controlling Lung Qingchen's body and profound veins, and traveled thousands of miles to retrieve his soul sword. Then, he rushed back to Cloud Sky City one day before the great battle. That night, he and Yang Dingtian went to a secluded place deep in the mountains to see if they could summon the sword soul. The two of them were incomparably confused. This was because Dongfang Minmi had already changed his body. Even his energy C and profound veins had changed. And the sword soul's choice of master was very, very strict. Therefore, after Shimen Wuya was destroyed, no one could use his soul sword, and no one dared to use it. This was because once one used Shimen Wuya's soul sword, the only outcome was to be devoured by the incomparably powerful sword soul inside, and be instantly annihilated. Shimen Wuya was a 6-star martial grandmaster. His sword soul was also at the level of a 4-star martial grandmaster. The sword soul was different from ordinary martial souls. Ordinary martial souls resided in the human body, and were not independent energy bodies. Therefore, during a battle, although it could increase the combat power of a martial artist, it would also consume the martial artist's profound qi cultivation. Therefore, in a battle between experts, even if they had a martial soul, they would not necessarily use it. Unless absolutely necessary, they would basically not use their martial souls. However, the sword soul was completely different. It was completely a heaven-defying independent life form. In other words, it was an independent life form. It had a complete energy C and profound veins. The soul sword was its body, the profound veins essence was its profound veins, and the C spirit crystal was its energy C. When its master was cultivating, it was also cultivating. And it was more powerful than its master in one aspect. That was the energy sea formed by the sea spirit crystal. The profound veins formed by the profound veins essence had much greater endurance than a human's profound veins, an energy sea. Therefore, once the sword soul was alive, once it started cultivating, its cultivation progress would be very, very fast. Therefore, after obtaining Lung Qingchen's body, Dongfang Minmi was only a beginner martial grandmaster. However, his sword soul was also a true 5-star martial grandmaster. Therefore, after taking back this soul sword, the only suspense was, would Dongfang Minmi still be able to summon his sword spirit, or would he suffer a backlash? Once there was a backlash, even Lung Qingchen's body would not be able to bear it. That night, Dongfang Minmi made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and poured in his spirit and energy to summon the sword soul in the soul sword. However, the result was not good, but also not bad. The good news was that the sword soul did not suffer a backlash. Instead, it was slightly touched. The bad news was that the sword soul could not be summoned. It could not successfully establish a connection with its master's soul. In other words, its master could not control it to fight. After Yang Dingtian and Dongfang Minmi's analysis, they came to a conclusion. The only connection between the sword soul and its master was the spirit and soul. It had little to do with profound qi. Then, what blocked Dongfang Minmi from connecting with the sword soul was the remnant energy of the demon spirit heart. As long as the brutal spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart was completely destroyed, Dongfang Minmi might be able to get his sword soul again. Therefore, Dongfang Minmi hid in the coffin again and tried his best to chase after the brutal spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart. However, this was a very, very long process. The brutal spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart was very fragmented and hid in every corner of the body. It was a very long process to completely disintegrate it. However, just one day later, the army of evil ways arrived as scheduled and the war began. Therefore, even during the war, Dongfang Minmi was still in the coffin. It was just that the coffin was placed on top of the city wall. At night, the enemy's final attack came, and the final battle began. The martial grandmaster puppet war demon, and more than a dozen grandmaster powerhouses attacked Cloud Sky City. Dongfang Minmi had to stop the final strangulation of the demon spirit heart's spiritual energy and come out of the coffin to fight. After fighting with Qin Zhong's martial grandmaster puppet, the result was one sad and one happy. The sad thing was that Qin Zhong's body had been greatly modified, so his cultivation was close to that of a 5-star martial grandmaster. Lung Qingchen's body had just broken through to the martial grandmaster realm not long ago. Therefore, even if the opponent was a puppet, it was not a match for Qin Zhong's puppet. The happy thing was that it was a huge surprise. Dongfang Minmi and Qin Zhong were directly sent flying a few hundred meters after crazily slashing at each other. Suddenly, the brutal spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart that had long escaped and hibernated in his body was instantly enraged. It was actually restless and wanted to condense again. It was as if Zhang San and Li Si were fighting. Li Si was defeated and was about to be beaten to death. In the end, he ran for his life and hid in the grass. Zhang San couldn't find him. Therefore, Zhang San had no choice but to curse at the edge of the grass and humiliate him. Therefore, Li Si couldn't take it and directly rushed out. Then he was beaten to death by Zhang San. Just like that, Dongfang Minmi deliberately risked his life to take the beating and couldn't fight back. He was violently beaten until he was sent flying more than 10 miles. There wasn't a single inch of the ground that was intact. It was all smashed and ruined by the violent puppet Qin Zhong. In the end, Dongfang Minmi was beaten a few hundred meters into the ground. How could the brutal spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart take such a beating? It couldn't take it anymore. It went berserk and crazily fought for control of the body. It wanted to counterattack and beat the opponent to death. Therefore, this spiritual energy recklessly rushed into the brain and fought for the highest control. Then, he was instantly killed by Dongfang Minmi's incomparably powerful spiritual energy. Not a single trace of him was left. It was a pity that the spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart couldn't speak. If it could, it would definitely complain that humans were too cunning. They were originally living in the same body, so why were they so anxious to kill each other? You actually seduced the enemy, lured me out, and then beat me to death. Your trick of injuring yourself to gain the enemy's confidence is very strong. This was exactly like Baldi Jiang Wei's saying that to resist foreign aggression, one must first settle the internal affairs. Although he was violently beaten, after completely strangling the remnant spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart, Dongfang Minmi instantly felt refreshed. Then, he immediately felt an incomparably powerful force. Of course, this was his sword spirit. After the spiritual energy of the demon spirit heart was destroyed, his soul and sword spirit instantly established a complete connection. Looking at the puppet Qin Zhong that was like a ferocious giant beast, Dongfang Minmi sneered, "It's time to end this battle." Then he grabbed the treasure sword and slashed down. Suddenly, the snow-white sword light skyrocketed, reaching hundreds of feet, piercing the sky. Then it fiercely slashed at the puppet Qin Zhong. The puppet war demon was indeed a puppet war demon. After seeing this incomparably powerful sword spirit, it was only slightly stunned, and then continued to rush over. Boom! There was a loud noise. The huge sword shadow slashed down fiercely. Suddenly, the entire ground instantly cracked for hundreds of feet. Although the puppet Qin Zhong blocked with the treasure sword, it was directly slashed to within hundreds of meters of the ground. Dirty blood spurted wildly, and the armor all over its body burst open. Then, Qin Zhong's body was exposed. It was really a disgusting body. It was no longer a human but a monster. The skin all over its body was as rough as a rock, suffused with a terrible fiery red and dead blue color. There were disgusting knots all over its body, as if it was injected with magma and venom. His entire face was completely devoid of facial features, completely twisted together. His entire body was full of cracks, and there were undulating knots everywhere. It was really unknown what evil ways had done to this body, making it completely lose its human appearance. Dongfang Minmi did not say anything, and continued to release the sword spirit to kill. But at this moment, the puppet war demon's eyes suddenly changed. Its originally incomparably bloodthirsty eyes suddenly became cold and dangerous. It, who was originally a walking corpse, suddenly seemed to have recovered its life and consciousness. Then it dodged at lightning speed. The puppet war demon, Qin Zhong, seemed to have recovered its consciousness in an instant, and became extremely cunning. Of course, it was not because it had recovered its consciousness, but because Qin Qiqi's consciousness directly controlled this body. After Qin Qiqi controlled Qin Zhong, she immediately fought with Dongfang Minmi cunningly instead of fighting head-on. On Yang Dingtian's side, the three great grandmasters launched the final attack on Yang Dingtian. Three incomparably powerful balls of mystic flames crazily devoured Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian's left hand rotated, and suddenly, a ball of complete darkness emerged from his hand. Whoosh! In an instant, this complete darkness energy crazily devoured the enemy's mystic flames. Boom! Yang Dingtian's body shook violently, and blood spurted out wildly. He was violently sent flying dozens of meters away. Because of his cultivation, the darkness mystic flame could only devour a limited amount of energy per unit of time. At this moment, the darkness mystic flame had devoured nearly half of the three great grandmasters' fatal attacks, and half of it crazily hit Yang Dingtian. Although it was an all-out attack from 1.5 great grandmasters, but to Yang Dingtian, it wasn't enough to cause any fatal damage, because he had the 9 Yang mystic meridians, and the mystic chi from the Naga royalty had been transformed by the Naga mystic meridians. Flying in the air, Yang Dingtian sneered and said, "Now it's my turn." The darkness mystic flame burned fiercely in his left hand. Of course, even if the darkness mystic flame bloomed, there was no flame, only complete darkness. The million spirit demonic flame burned fiercely in his right hand. Then the two hands suddenly crossed. In an instant, the two heaven-defying mystic flames merged fiercely. They became extremely strange and dazzling mystic flames. Kill! In the air, Yang Dingtian roared fiercely and smashed the two mystic flames toward the three great grandmasters. The three purple-robed great grandmasters were disdainful. They released mystic chi flames from their bodies and blasted toward Yang Dingtian's mystic flame. The combined cultivation of the three great grandmasters was much higher than Yang Dingtian's. Therefore, they could easily disperse Yang Dingtian's mystic flame attack. In an instant, the two flames crossed fiercely in the air. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly burst forth with dazzling light. But the scene that everyone expected did not happen. Originally, everyone thought that Yang Dingtian's mystic flame would be dispersed in an instant. But it did not. Not only did Yang Dingtian's mystic flame not disperse, it exploded fiercely and became extremely huge. Its energy doubled in an instant. Why did this happen? Because the darkness mystic flame had devoured half of the great grandmaster's mystic chi flames. Then the incomparably huge fireball blasted toward the three great grandmasters fiercely. Resist! The three great grandmasters released their mystic chi to block the attack. Boom! There was another loud bang and another explosion. However, Yang Dingtian's mystic flame's energy doubled again and became extremely huge. This time, the three great grandmasters could not dodge and were hit. Boom! There was an earth-shattering sound. The three great grandmasters flew out like straws and vomited blood in the air. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. In the next second, swoosh! 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 Yang Dingtian moved up and down and quickly appeared behind the three great grandmasters who were blasted away. 3 fierce slashes. In an instant, 3 huge heads flew into the air. The 3 great grandmasters all died without a complete corpse. There was a dead silence in the field. Yang Dingtian fought 3 great grandmasters alone. He actually killed all 3 of them. What kind of sensational news was this? How shocking was this? Whether it was Ning Wuming who was floating in the air, or Qin Chichi who was far away, they were all stunned. What was Yang Dingtian's cultivation level? He did not seem to have broken through to the great grandmaster level. He had not broken through to the great grandmaster level, and he had already killed 3 great grandmasters. How shocking was this? Even Qin Wanshou who was far away felt his blood boil, and was ready to fight. After killing the 3 great grandmasters, Yang Dingtian used all the shock, and used his invisibility mystic skill, to completely disappear from everyone's sight again. At this time, Ning Wuming was even more shocked. Of course, he knew some invisibility skills, and even had some invisibility clothes. However, that was not true invisibility. Using mystic chi and mental strength to search, one could easily find the person who was invisible by listening to their breathing, pulse, and energy. However, Yang Dingtian's invisibility was actually complete invisibility. More than 10 great grandmasters used all their methods, but they could not find him at all. In an instant, Ning Wuming changed his mind and flew towards Qin Chichi at his fastest speed. Qin Chichi did not know any martial arts. If Yang Dingtian went to kill Qin Chichi, no one would be able to stop him. Or if he used Qin Chichi as a hostage, the situation would be even worse. However, he was worrying too much. Qin Chichi was dozens of miles away, and there was an old great grandmaster protecting her. Yang Dingtian's invisibility mystic skill could be used to stand still. Once he moved, it would consume a lot of mystic chi. That day, Yang Dingtian tried his best in the secret realm of Despair City, but he could only move about 100 meters. At this time, Yang Dingtian's cultivation level had increased greatly, but the distance he could move only increased by 7 to 8 times. Just as all the great grandmasters were desperately searching for Yang Dingtian. Suddenly, swoosh swoosh swoosh, Yang Dingtian suddenly appeared at the edge of the enchanting encirclement. The sharp sword in his hand stabbed out 3 times in a row. 2 of the swords directly pierced the hearts of 2 great grandmasters. As for the third sword, the enemy's reaction was incomparably fast and directly missed. The 2 great grandmasters violently vomited blood. Filled with unwillingness, they fell to the ground and died. In a short period of time, Yang Dingtian had killed 5 great grandmasters in a row. Kill him! Leng Yanmei roared. In an instant, the remaining dozen great grandmasters, led by Leng Yanmei, madly rushed towards Yang Dingtian. A total of 8 great grandmasters madly surrounded him. Kill with your sword. Suddenly, The 8 great grandmasters fiercely pulled out their sharp swords and madly slashed at the air. It was as if they wanted to tear apart every inch of the air. The mystic chi of the 8 great grandmasters crazily crisscrossed, as if strangling every inch of space. Suddenly, young Dingtian desperately dodged. That's right, the invisibility mystic skill could isolate oneself in a space and not be discovered. However, his sword could pierce out. Other people's swords could also pierce in. Therefore, this isolated space was completely visual and spiritual isolation. It was not invulnerable. Following Lung Yinmei's order, everything within a few hundred meters of Yang Dingtian had become a complete killing space. Yang Dingtian tried his best to dodge, otherwise, he could be ground into minced meat at any time. What was more fatal was that even if he was scratched a little, he would be immediately exposed. Once exposed, there was only one way out. At this time, Song Chunhua was seriously injured and lying on the ground. Zhu Hongxue and Qin Huayu were restrained by 3 great grandmasters. Yaorao was locked in a blade prison formed by 4 great grandmasters. Seeing the 8 great grandmasters madly strangling the space of a few hundred meters, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue suddenly burned with anxiety. Suddenly, the two of them looked at each other. The two of them suddenly roared, and directly rushed towards the sharp swords of the 3 great grandmasters. They were betting that these people would not dare to kill them. Sure enough, seeing the two of them rushing over without regard for their lives, the 3 great grandmasters were stunned and instinctively moved their swords away. In an instant, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue madly released mystic fire towards the 8 great grandmasters without regard for their lives, interfering with the 8 great grandmasters' strangling of Yang Dingtian. At the same time, Yaorao, who was trapped in the blade prison. Suddenly, she cried out in pain and covered her big belly. The 5 grandmasters surrounding her were shocked and turned to look at her. Suddenly, Yaorao's beautiful eyes lit up, revealing an incomparably charming and enchanting light. Her eyes were as beautiful as the deep sea, like a blurred illusion, instantly attracting their spirit and sinking into it. The fox spirit's enchanting technique. For great grandmasters, it only took a moment, but it was enough. After instantly enchanting the 3 great grandmasters, Yaorao's sharp sword struck out like lightning and instantly shattered the energy blade prison. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Then, Yaorao's incomparably vicious sharp sword wildly scattered. Of the 3 great grandmasters who were enchanted, 2 of them. In an instant, they were strangled into minced meat. The third one woke up at the fastest speed. Then, Yaorao turned into lightning and rushed towards the 8 great grandmasters surrounding Yang Dingtian to save Yang Dingtian. When Ning Wuming saw the changes on this side, his expression changed drastically. He said coldly, "Let Qin Zhong leave the enemy's sword spirit grandmaster and come over to encircle Yaorao and attack the child in her belly. Then she will go berserk. No one here is a match for her," Qin Chichi said. "Let her go berserk and kill Yang Dingtian's sword spirit grandmaster and Yang Dingtian." Ning Wuming said coldly, "Anyway, as long as Yang Dingtian doesn't die in our hands, Master can't blame us." "Yes," Qin Chichi said. Then, she controlled the great grandmaster puppet, Qin Zhong, to leave Dongfang Minmi and rush towards Yaorao like lightning. Once a mid-level great grandmaster moved at full speed, its speed was incomparably shocking. Qin Zhong, the puppet war demon, suddenly approached Yaorao like lightning. It would take less than 2 minutes to cover the distance of dozens of miles. Of course, Dongfang Minmi, who was behind it, couldn't catch up with it with his own cultivation. Running away in front of the sword spirit, and leaving your back to the sword spirit, is undoubtedly the most stupid thing to do. Then, Dongfang Minmi's Xianqi energy suddenly burst out. The sharp sword in his hand turned into a shooting star and flew out of his hand. In an instant, it turned into a ray of light that was hundreds of feet long. Then, this huge ray of light scattered in the air and turned into tens of thousands of sword rays. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Tens of thousands of swords, like tens of thousands of stars, chased after the puppet war demon. In an instant, they had already caught up. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Then it was a frenzied killing. The puppet war demon was indeed a puppet war demon. It still ran madly, leaving its back completely open to the sword spirit. Whoosh 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 whoosh, countless swords madly strangled and pierced through the puppet war demon's body. Disgusting green blood spurted out. In an instant, the puppet war demon, Qin Zhong, was smashed into pieces and turned into countless pieces of flesh and blood splattering everywhere. He, who was already dead, was completely dead once again. Chapter 491. Note: Second update. It's already 3 in the morning. Today's update is still at 11,000. Brothers, cheer me on please. Sword Soul. In an instant, all the enemies present were completely stunned by Dongfang Minmi's Sword Soul. Even though Dongfang Mimi had already used his Sword Soul once and unleashed a sword light that was hundreds of feet long, it still wasn't enough. However, it looked too much like a sword ray made of Xianqi, even though Xianqi sword rays weren't that long. However, the characteristics of the sword ray weren't obvious at that time. Qin Chichi was only surprised that Yang Dingtian, the battle puppet demon, had suddenly become so powerful. Therefore, she had no choice but to use her divine sense to control Qin Zhong to fight. Next, when Qin Zhong turned his back to Dongfang Minmi, it was the best time for him to release his sword soul. As a result, Dongfang Mimi finally released the most dazzling and stunning sword soul attack. Sect Convergence Swords. This was definitely the most representative trump card of all sword souls. Although all sword souls weren't exactly the same, there were still some similarities. However, there were still some similarities. For example, the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin was the most representative move of the Sword Soul. Shimin Wuya had once released the Sect Convergence Swords during the Battle on the Sea and defeated the Grandmaster level expert, Grand Elder Ning Busi. Although Shimin Wuya's Sword Soul wasn't as mature as Dongfang Minmi's, the Sect Convergence Swords of Shimin Wuya's Sword Soul was already slightly stronger than Dongfang Minmi's. Therefore, Dongfang Minmi asserted that if Shimin Wuya hadn't been framed by Zhu Qingzhu, he would have been invincible within 10 years. Within 10 years, he would even be able to fight with those two over 200 years old monsters. Let's not talk about Shimin Wuya. Almost everyone present had never seen a sword soul with their own eyes. Even Qin Wanshou and Zhu Qingzhu hadn't cultivated a sword soul yet. Before their eyes, the Sect Convergence Swords had actually appeared, and a sword soul had actually appeared. Instantly, the battlefield fell into a deathly silence. Ning Wuming and Qin Chichi weren't the only ones who were shocked. Qin Wanshou and Xiu Wanjia, who were far away, were also shocked. They stared at the ground in disbelief at the peerless expert who had unleashed the Sword Soul. In this world, those who could use Sword Soul were all dead. Who exactly was this person who was able to use the Sword Soul? Ning Wuming had been smiling all this time. His gentle and refined face had finally changed. His body finally began to tremble. Qin Zhong, the great Grandmaster Puppet War Devil, was smashed to pieces. Instantly, Ning Wuming's side fell into an absolute disadvantage. If it were the previous 19 Grandmasters, they might have been able to fight against a great Grandmaster. But now, of the 19 Master-level Masters, 5 were killed by Yang Dingtian's terrifying means, and 2 were killed by Yaorao. There were only 12 left. Including Qin Chichi's personal guards, there were 13 left. Could 13 Masters fight against a great Grandmaster? Just barely. But what if it was a great Grandmaster who had a sword soul? What if there were 4 complete Grandmasters on Yang Dingtian's side, or close to the great Grandmaster level? They were destined to lose this battle. After killing Qin Zhong, Dongfang Minmi immediately approached Yang Dingtian at full speed. Ning Wuming bowed slowly and asked gently, "May I know your name, senior?" Dongfang Minmi was still shrouded in the cloak. He said slowly, "Young Master Ning, who am I? Perhaps only another master has the right to know." As he spoke, he quickly approached Yang Dingtian. Actually, Dongfang Minmi wasn't the only one approaching. Qin Wanshou, the great Grandmaster, was also approaching, because everyone knew that they had entered the most dangerous situation. Previously, Qin Huayu's life wasn't in danger, but that was because Ning Wuming was confident of victory. Now Ning Wuming, who was facing a trapped beast, couldn't care less. Not only could Qin Huayu die, but Zhu Hongxue could also die. "Senior, please stop. If you walk too fast, I will feel uneasy." Once I feel uneasy, I will counterattack crazily. Ning Wuming smiled and continued. The situation in front of us is already very clear. I think Senior also doesn't want to fight like a trapped beast. In this way, with more than 10 grandmasters, Yang Dingtian, Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, and Zhu Hongxue could all be killed. Then let's have a negotiation, how about it? Dongfang Minmi said indifferently. I will completely follow the will of City Lord Yang Dingtian. If you want to negotiate, you can talk to him. Then, Dongfang Minmi continued to approach at full speed. Senior, please stop. Ning Wuming said. This is the last time I am warning you. If you come any closer, I will immediately order more than 10 grandmasters to attack Yang Dingtian and the others. Don't doubt my words and don't provoke me. Immediately, Dongfang Minmi slowed down, but he still approached Yang Dingtian. Ning Wuming suddenly said to the air, Sir Yang Dingtian, how about we talk for a while? Yang Dingtian directly appeared in the air and slowly walked to the side of Yao Rao, Qin Huayu, and Zhu Hongxue. Then he walked to the heavily injured Song Chunhua, helped her up, and carried her to Yao Rao. How are you? Yang Dingtian asked. Not bad, I won't die. Song Chunhua said. I just didn't live up to your expectations. Then, Song Chunhua weakly closed her eyes. In this battle, Yang Dingtian had the universe ring, the darkness mystic flame, and the mystic skill of invisibility. And Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue had their identities to protect them. Therefore, the only one who was heavily injured was Song Chunhua, who was jointly injured by 2 4-star grandmasters. Talk. How? Yang Dingtian was also willing to negotiate. He only had one goal, and that was to stall for time and wait for Dongfang Minmi's arrival. Once his master arrived, this battle would be completely over, and they would win. At this moment, Dongfang Minmi was about 20 miles away from Yang Dingtian. This period of time might be the most dangerous moment, and also the closest moment to victory. Ning Wuming said, Let's pretend that nothing happened. We'll all retreat, how about that? Are you kidding? Yang Dingtian said. Ning Wuming said, Then let's take a step back. I'll completely withdraw from the Western world. The Northwest continent, the Southwest continent, and the North will all belong to you. I'll go and manage the Central continent, how about that? You come and go as you wish. Do you think my Cloud Sky City is your backyard? Yang Dingtian said coldly. Ning Wuming spread out his hands and said, City Lord Yang, you should know. First of all, my infiltration in the Western world is very strong. Even Qin Wancho's children are in my hands. I can make millions, or even thousands of people die from the plague. These are all my bargaining chips. And the bargaining chips in your hands are the lives of the remaining 10 grandmasters under me. You should know that you can't kill me. Yang Dingtian said with a smile. Young Master Ning, I'm not as smart as you, but I also know that you've completely lost this battle. In the entire Western world, you have no chance to make a comeback. In order to build up the world to besiege Cloud Sky City, you've already used up everything you have. So from now on, you can only hide underground and carry out terrorist acts in the Western world. It's absolutely impossible to occupy it head-on. And the so-called terrorist acts are also actions that harm others without benefiting yourself. So your bargaining chips may not be bargaining chips anymore. Ning Wuming smiled helplessly and said, Okay, then I'll take another step back. You've now become a lurker of evil ways, the public enemy of the world. How about this? You let us withdraw from here calmly, and I'll restore your reputation in the Tiando League. How about that? Alright, Senior who knows Sword Soul, your speed is too fast. I'm a little uneasy. Dongfang Minmi's eyes narrowed, and he slowed down slightly. Then, Ning Wuming shrugged and continued to speak to Yang Dingtian. Look, I'm already very, very generous. I'll give you the entire Western world, and the Tiando League will restore your reputation. I'll go to Zhengzhou and fight for power with Zhu Qingzhu. This should be very beneficial to you. No. Yang Dingtian shook his head. Although the two of them were talking, the dozen or so grandmasters in front of them were circulating their celestial qi, ready to attack at any time. On the other side, Dongfang Minmi was still 20 miles away from Yang Dingtian. Because they couldn't provoke Ning Wuming's forces to counterattack before death, They didn't dare to speed up. At this moment, the final moment was getting closer and closer. The destruction of Ning Wuming's forces was also getting closer and closer. As long as Dongfang Minmi arrived, everything would be over. Ning Wuming's expression turned cold, and he said coldly, Yang Dingtian, are you forcing me to turn against you? Don't you know the consequences of me turning against you? Don't tell me you want millions of people to die because of you? Once I turn against you, Cloud Sky City won't be able to escape either. Then, Ning Wuming said coldly, the child in this vixen's stomach is yours, right? You're really something, to be able to get a 1,000-year demon fox pregnant. If I turn against you immediately, and let the dozen or so grandmasters attack the child in her stomach, what will happen? You won't be able to stop it, right? What will the result be? Your child will be destroyed before it's even born. That vixen will go berserk in an instant. Then I'll kill all of you here. The grandmaster behind you with the sword soul won't be able to escape either. Then, Ning Wuming said sternly, everyone get ready to attack that vixen's stomach. Suddenly, a terrifying flame surged in Yao Rao's beautiful eyes. Her entire body began to stir. Not to mention destroying the child in her stomach, just Ning Wuming's threat was enough to make Yao Rao go berserk. If that really happened, Yao Rao would definitely go berserk. Once she went berserk, with the cultivation of a 9-star grandmaster, everyone present would die, without a complete corpse. Yang Dingtian, you don't have a choice, Ning Wuming said lightly. Yang Dingtian walked to Yao Rao's side, and gently held her hand. Half of her hand was cold, and the other half was hot. She was trembling, not because of fear, but because of anger. That senior is getting closer and closer. Once he arrives, we'll be dead. Time is of the essence, you have to make a choice, Ning Wuming said. Let's go immediately, or I'll kill your unborn child. I'll count to 3. 1. At this moment, Dongfang Minmi, who was more than 10 miles away, was rushing back as fast as he could. 2. Zhu Hongxue and Qin Huayu quickly came to Yao Rao's side, wanting to use their bodies to block the attacks. As for Dongfang Minmi, he suddenly released his sword soul. In an instant, thousands of light swords flew over like meteors. Kill, Ning Wuming said lightly. Boom, 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 boom. More than a dozen grandmasters used all of their chi flames to attack Li Mu. The cunning Ning Wuming didn't even count to 3 before launching his attack. Immediately, Yang Dingtian, Zhu Hongxue, and Qin Huayu used all their strength to block in front of Yao Rao. But more than 10 grandmasters didn't only want to attack Yao Rao, but also Yang Dingtian. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, more than 10 grandmasters, before they could launch a second wave of attacks, were instantly smashed into pieces by the sword spirit. At the same time, Dongfang Minmi, who had almost turned into a stream of light, suddenly arrived and flew into the air. He quickly caught Song Chunhua and Yang Dingtian, one in each hand. Then, he frantically injected Xian Qi to suppress the crazy tearing of the two people's bodies by the powerful energy. As for Ning Wuming, after giving the order for the first attack, he immediately grabbed Qin Chichi and fled frantically. He was completely like lightning, fleeing like a stream of light. In almost an instant, he had disappeared without a trace. At this time, he was already nowhere to be seen. The furious Dongfang Minmi, holding Yang Dingtian in one hand and Song Chunhua in the other, frantically chased after him. This was because even at the critical moment, he had firmly locked onto Ning Wuming's energy aura. The enraged Yao Rao also chased after him at full speed. A few minutes later, Dongfang Minmi chased for nearly 100 miles, and finally saw Ning Wuming's back again. At this time, Dongfang Minmi finally saw Ning Wuming's true cultivation level. He was an 8-star grandmaster. He was not even 30 years old yet, but he was already a 7-star grandmaster. How crazy was he? Only when he was frantically running for his life, this extremely cunning person would use all his energy. He was frantically running, desperately running. His speed was very fast, but he was still not faster than Dongfang Minmi, who was at the grandmaster level. In an instant, Dongfang Minmi was getting closer and closer. The speed of the two people had reached the extreme. They were like lightning, shuttling back and forth in the air. They were getting closer and closer. After a while, the two people flew for another 100 miles. Dongfang Minmi was only a few hundred meters away from Ning Wuming. Ning Wuming's destruction was already in front of him. At this time, Ning Wuming suddenly said to Qin Chichi, who was in his arms, "Chichi, I'm sorry. Help your husband for the last time." After saying that, Ning Wuming did not turn back. He suddenly threw Qin Chichi towards Dongfang Minmi. Instantly, Qin Chichi, who had no strength to truss a chicken, flew towards Dongfang Minmi like a kite. At this time, Qin Chichi's beautiful eyes were full of sarcasm and sorrow. This person was really ruthless. At the most critical moment, he threw his wife away in exchange for his own escape. Dongfang Minmi hugged Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua together with one hand. Then, he used his other hand to grab Qin Chichi, who was in the air in his palm. Although this woman was not as heavy as Ning Wuming, she was still heavy enough. With this slight delay, Ning Wuming flew for another 1,000 meters. The distance between him and Dongfang Minmi was pulled apart again. Dongfang Minmi continued to chase. After a while, the two people flew for another 100 miles. Dongfang Minmi, although there were 3 people on him, he was still getting closer and closer to Ning Wuming. After another 100 miles, the distance between the two people was once again reduced to a few hundred meters. It seemed that Ning Wuming had no way to escape. At this time, the two people were already 400 to 500 miles away from Cloud Sky City. Although Ning Wuming was escaping crazily, although he was as cunning as a fox, although he counterattacked before his death, he even sacrificed more than 10 master experts and his wife in exchange for his own escape. However, he still could not escape. Dongfang Minmi, even if he had Yang Dingtian in his arms, chased after him crazily until the end. However, at this time suddenly, Ning Wuming suddenly stopped and turned around. He faced Dongfang Minmi with a gentle and elegant smile on his face. It was a calm and gentle smile that was incomparably amiable. Chapter 492. Looks like I won't die again. Ning Wuming let out a long sigh of relief. After he stopped, Dongfang Minmi did not go forward to capture or kill him. Instead, he stopped. This was because he had suddenly rushed into an incomparably huge energy formation. Only a great grandmaster could release such a powerful aura, and an advanced great grandmaster at that. His cultivation was even higher than Dongfang Minmi's. "Sir, are you really going to interfere in this matter?" Dongfang Minmi said slowly. The other party's silence meant that he had tacitly agreed. "Sir, for keeping your promise." Ning Wuming first bowed in the air, then looked at Yang Dingtian. "Brother Yang, are you awake?" At this time, Yang Dingtian was being injected with an astronomical amount of profound energy by Dongfang Minmi. The tearing of his profound veins and energy sea was suppressed, and he woke up. Of course, even if he did not wake up at this time, he would have been awakened by Ning Wuming's words. Previously, he had fought Yang Dingtian to the death, then fled with all his might. Now he was calling him brother. This person's shamelessness could not be any worse. Yang Dingtian got down from Dongfang Minmi's body and looked at Song Chunhua with concern. Then, he forced himself to float in the air and said to Ning Wuming, "Say it." "I want to talk about my wife, Qin Chichi," Ning Wuming said. Ning Wuming said, "Everyone knows that after we get married, we will definitely be very loving." "Amen," Yang Dingtian said. "If you want us to let her go, you don't have to say it. Then what do you plan to do with her?" Ning Wuming asked worriedly. "Dismember her in front of everyone," Yang Dingtian said. "Oh, that's good, as long as you don't touch her body." Ning Wuming said, "I really can't accept being cuckolded." Uft! Yang Dingtian suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, Qin Chichi spat out a mouthful of blood and directly sprayed out of her veil. Was this a human? It's a beast. At this time, he was actually concerned about whether Yang Dingtian would cheat on him. Then Ning Wuming said, "That's right, younger brother should know. Because of some kind of special energy in her body, she can't be killed. As long as we kill her body, her soul will immediately escape without a trace." Yang Dingtian nodded in astonishment. What was this beast trying to do? Ning Wuming continued. "Actually, this isn't anything special. It's just a type of soul detachment technique. When the body died, the soul detachment technique would automatically activate, and the soul would instantly leave the body and escape. However, the only troublesome thing was that when the soul left the host body, it would become very, very weak, so it would instantly dissipate in the air. However, because of the evil spirit's protection, our souls can survive for a long time after leaving our bodies, long enough to find a new host. Of course, the most important thing is that we have soul condensing shadow. Does brother know about it? Yang Dingtian could no longer be bothered with how Ning Wuming kept on calling him brother. He was stunned by Ning Wuming's words. So this was the secret of these evil ways' immortality. After learning the soul detachment technique, once the body died, the soul would immediately leave the body. Because of the evil spirit's protection, the soul would not dissipate after leaving the body for a period of time. Then it would travel thousands of miles and enter the soul condensing shadow. In an instant, it would recover its powerful soul energy and take over the body of a living person, occupying a new host body. Then, it would reappear in this world with a different identity and face. However, what shocked young Dingtian was that the evil ways actually had many soul condensing shadows. Of course, because of the evil spirit's energy, evil ways could easily kill demon spirits. However, once the demon spirit died, the soul condensing shadow would immediately dissipate. They had obviously solved the difficult problem and had collected at least 2 digits of soul condensing shadows. You also know that the soul condensing shadow is equivalent to another life for us. Ning Wuming said, therefore it can be considered as our highest reward. Currently, I have a certain amount of soul condensing shadows in my hands. So, you also know that Qiu Ruhan ran over to offer herself to me. I couldn't control it, so she received a soul condensing shadow. To be honest, I'm slightly regretting it now. Yang Dingtian frowned and said, what are you trying to say? Ning Wuming said, what I'm trying to say is that if you want to kill Qin Chichi, it's best to kill her soul as well. Otherwise, she will still be resurrected. She has a total of 3 soul condensing shadows in her hands, and only she knows where they are hidden. Immediately, Qin Chichi spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted completely. Yang Dingtian almost couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. Previously, he had said that Ning Wuming was a beast, but now it seemed that he was even worse than a beast. He chattered so much to Yang Dingtian because he was afraid that Yang Dingtian wouldn't be able to kill Qin Chichi. You should know how to kill Qin Chichi completely, right? Ning Wuming spread out his hands and said, it's that, the evil soul art or something. Yes, I know. Yang Dingtian nodded. Ning Wuming laughed at himself and said, it seems that I'm still not shameless enough to do such a vicious thing with a clear conscience. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. In the entire world, there was probably no one more shameless than Ning Wuming. Then, Yang Dingtian said, but I have something that I can't help but ask. Why do you have to kill Qin Chichi? Ning Wuming said bitterly, actually, someone told me before the battle. In case I failed, he told me to escape in the southwest direction. He said he would wait for me at Redstone Lake and let me live. At first, I didn't think much of it and thought that I couldn't possibly fail. But in the end I really failed. So, I ran in this direction with all my might. But when I reached Redstone Lake, he wasn't there. I almost broke down completely. In order to survive, I threw Qin Chichi over. In that instant, she became the woman who hated me the most in the world. Once a woman takes revenge, it's very scary, especially a woman like Qin Chichi. So, since I've already become so shameless, I might as well let her die. Okay, then I'll do as you wish, Yang Dingtian said. Okay, then we'll make a deal, Ning Wuming said. You help me kill Qin Chichi, and I'll spare the lives of Qin Wancho's children. Yang Dingtian said, there's something I want to ask you. Speak, Ning Wuming said. Is the earth-shattering city Lord Kuei-si in your hands? Yang Dingtian asked. Ning Wuming frowned and said, it's hard to say. Okay, then I understand, Yang Dingtian said. Then I'll take my leave, Ning Wuming said. But before I leave, there's something I want to tell you. Please speak, Yang Dingtian said. Actually, It's not necessarily a good thing that you've beaten me so miserably this time, Ning Wuming said. Of course, I've been completely expelled from the entire Western world, and you've obtained complete victory and control of the entire Western world. But the opponent you're going to face next will be even more sinister and terrifying, and definitely won't be as direct as me. Yang Dingtian's pupil shrank. What did this mean? Ning Wuming said. Before the battle between you and me broke out, no one in this world thought that you would win. But someone told me that I might lose. And if I lose, he'll send someone here to wait for me and save my life. Then, Ning Wuming pointed at a certain spot in the air and said, There, this person was sent by that guy. He's definitely much more difficult to deal with than me. Yang Dingtian, you're on your own now. Goodbye. After saying that, Ning Wuming quickly fled and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. At this time, that high-level master's energy field was still enveloping an area of a few thousand meters. Dongfang Minmi's pupil shrank, and he said, Your Excellency, you're not fighting, and you're not retreating. What do you mean? The other party did not respond. A real man, why do you have to hide? Come out and meet me, how about it? Dongfang Minmi said. The other party still did not respond. Then the two sides faced each other coldly. After a full hour, the other party's aura suddenly disappeared without a trace. He left. From the beginning to the end, he did not show up, did not make a move, and did not even make a sound. Just like that, he saved Ning Wuming. However, the relationship between him and Ning Wuming was neither friend nor foe, and was extremely complicated. Although he saved Ning Wuming's life, he also tricked him. After his aura left, Dongfang Minmi's body shook, and he almost fell to the ground. Then cold sweat burst out all over his body. Just now, a full hour of confrontation made him almost exhausted. Then, Dongfang Minmi brought Yang Dingtian, and quickly returned to Cloud Sky City. At this time, Cloud Sky City was already busy. The 200,000 troops of the East and West Legions had already rushed to the battlefield. Of course, they were not here to fight, but to clean up the battlefield. Of course, the so-called cleaning up the battlefield was to continuously gather the corpses together and then completely burn them. And Qin Wanqiu was treating Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongshua's injuries. Of course, these two people were not seriously injured. Even Yang Dingtian, because Song Chunhua shared half of the damage, pulled his Xian meridians back from the brink of destruction. Therefore, although Yang Dingtian's injuries were serious, he would be able to completely recover after a period of time. The only one who was seriously injured was Song Chunhua. Although Dongfang Minmi injected a large amount of Xian qi and gave her a large amount of holy water pills, she was still unconscious. Although the rupture of her Xian meridians and the rupture of her energy sea had already stopped. But there was almost no sign of recovery. Even the holy water pills could not heal her Xian meridians. Furthermore, the holy water pills in her body were like a stone sinking into the sea. When Yang Dingtian saw Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie again, he did not give them a good face because of his complicated feelings. And Qin Wanqiu, this ambitious and ruthless person, also revealed an extremely rare, awkward and complicated expression. Yang Dingtian really hated these two people, especially Qin Wanqiu. If he had taken action earlier, Song Chunhua would not have been so seriously injured. Let's go, let's talk inside, Yang Dingtian said indifferently. Then, Yang Dingtian rode the demonic dragon and carried Song Chunhua into Cloud Sky City. Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie followed closely behind. At this time the battlefield was bustling, but there was only one area that no one dared to approach. That was the place where the 30,000 blood pupil demonic army were buried. That place was already more disgusting and terrifying than hell. Complete corpses, even the flesh was gone. Everywhere was a disgusting green color. 2 to 3 miles of the ground had already been corroded into a huge pit. Moreover, the corrosion was still continuing, but it eventually slowed down. But even so, this terrifying green pit was already 4 to 5 meters deep. Originally, someone had suggested a genius idea to throw all the corpses of the demon army into this pit. Then he was almost beaten to death. If all the corpses were thrown in, they would be completely melted. But the originally astronomical amount of poison would be multiplied by dozens of times. At that time, a few hundred miles of land would be completely destroyed. Therefore, how to deal with this hellish pit was already a matter of urgency. Otherwise, the consequences for Yang Dingtian would definitely be disastrous. After Yang Dingtian entered the city, there were still a large number of soldiers on duty on the city walls. But at this time, Cloud Sky City had already become a sea of joy. There was madness everywhere, and there was celebration everywhere. The citizens took out everything they had, and held the biggest banquet in history. And when Yang Dingtian led the troops back to Cloud Sky City, they were met with a tsunami of cheers. Countless people were calling out Yang Dingtian's name. There was even a huge team that began to parade with Yang Dingtian's portrait. Yang Dingtian's heart trembled. Was the deification and worship of people in the chaotic world about to begin? Therefore, Yang Dingtian's journey was extremely difficult. Because the war was not completely over, the central road was still not accessible to the public. It could only be used for military purposes. However, countless people crowded on both sides of the road, holding countless flowers of all kinds of wine, and crazily roaring at Yang Dingtian with fanatical worship. Almost everywhere he went, countless people knelt down like rice paddies in the wind. They really couldn't suppress the ecstasy and worship in their hearts. Even though they couldn't see the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the city. However, the trembling of the earth and the attack of the Golden Condor Legion made them feel that the end of the world was coming. Even though City Lord Yang Dingtian had promised that he would win, the war would end tomorrow. However, looking at the enemy's destructive momentum, many people of Cloud Sky City no longer dared to have any hope. They were waiting for the countless enemies to rush in, and then everyone would bleed to the last drop of blood. In fact, halfway through the war, countless people of Cloud Sky City had already picked up hatchets, hoes, and wooden sticks. They gathered on the road and gathered at the door, waiting for the moment when the demon army rushed into the city wall. But who knew that City Lord Yang's army would achieve a near-miraculous victory, facing an astronomical number of enemies, facing an enemy that could destroy heaven and earth. City Lord Yang Dingtian did not go back on his word. The war was over before noon tomorrow. Cloud Sky City had won a complete victory. The enemy was completely wiped out. Suddenly, the worship and support of the millions of people of Cloud Sky City for Yang Dingtian rose to the peak. Under the fanatical worship, individual deification also spread crazily. Under such circumstances, how could Yang Dingtian leave like lightning? He could only greet them along the way and move forward. Occasionally, there would be a 1 or 2-year-old baby who was not watched by the adults. They could not understand the military ban and directly rushed into the middle of the road. Yang Dingtian even wanted to come down, hug them, and kiss them before returning them to their parents. This time it was terrible. Countless 1 or 2-year-old babies were deliberately placed in the middle of the road by their parents. Yang Dingtian was helpless. He could only carry one in each hand and walk forward. Then, there were also babies who were interested in the incomparably huge demonic dragon mount behind Yang Dingtian, and desperately went up. The adults admired and feared the demonic dragon warriors. They did not dare to approach them at all. This included many children. When they saw the demonic dragon, they cried loudly. However, there were some children who were not afraid of anything and desperately went up. Therefore, Yang Dingtian simply ordered 100 demonic dragon warriors to come. Then, he placed the children who were not afraid and were fanatical about the demonic dragon on the demonic dragon. Thus 400 to 500 naughty children rode on 100 demonic dragons. Under the helpless watch of 100 demonic dragon warriors, they swaggered through the city. Just like that, after a full 2 hours, they only walked less than 10 miles forward. Looking at the situation, they would not be able to return to Cloud Sky Castle by dawn. Therefore, Yang Dingtian simply called the Jiao Liao over and said, "Bring Song Chunhua back to Cloud Sky City. You don't have to do anything. Put her on the unfreezing water bed." "Yes," the Jiao Liao said. Then, she carried Song Chunhua onto the flying mount and flew towards Cloud Sky Castle. "Kuei Ning," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes." The young master of Splitting Earth City, Kuei Ning, stepped forward. Order the ordinary brothers of the Demon Vulture Army to patrol within a radius of 500 miles around Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian said. Especially the East and West armies outside the city. Don't let them move. Yes. Kuei Ning received the order and went forward. First and second commanders of the Demon Dragon Army, Yang Dingtian said. Yes. The first and second commanders said. Both of you will have to work harder. Continue to guard the city walls, and be wary of the East and West armies outside. Remember, do not let them come within 10 miles of Cloud Sky City. Otherwise, kill them without mercy, Yang Dingtian ordered. Yes. The first and second commanders of the Demon Dragon Army received the order and left. They did not care about Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie's ugly expressions. Commander Shimen Lai. Yes. Shimen Lai stepped forward. Do two things, Yang Dingtian said. First, keep all the people in a state of combat readiness. Once there is any commotion outside Cloud Sky City, immediately fire the cannons if anyone comes within 10 miles of Cloud Sky City. Second, organize a team of 30,000 people. Do not bring any weapons and maintain order in the city. The main thing is to prevent fires and trampling during the celebrations. Yes. Shimen Lai received the order and left. Mu Lianqing, Yang Dingtian said. Yes. Mu Lianqing stepped forward. Distribute a batch of rations, meat, and fruits urgently. Let today's celebrations be a little more sumptuous. Let everyone enjoy the joy of our victory, Yang Dingtian said. Yes. Mu Lianqing received the order and left. After the arrangements were completed, Yang Dingtian simply enjoyed the celebrations with the people and immersed himself in the joy of the millions of people. Just like that, the entire Cloud Sky City was in a state of celebration. Due to the emergency distribution, the sky above Cloud Sky City was filled with the fragrance of food, cheers, and fanatical worship. The entire Cloud Sky City was sleepless. Around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which was the darkest time of the night, dozens of fireworks instantly brought Cloud Sky City's celebration to its peak. Fireworks. The primal chaos realm did not have fireworks. These fireworks were a byproduct of Yang Dingtian's cannons. Even though it could not be compared to the resplendent fireworks on Earth, it was enough to amaze everyone. Just like that, they continued to celebrate and move forward. It wasn't until dawn that Yang Dingtian finally reached the center of Cloud Heaven City, which was within 100 miles of Cloud Heaven City. Countless people involuntarily moved along with Yang Dingtian. Like countless sunflowers facing the sun, Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie squeezed their way forward in this awkward atmosphere. At the center of Cloud Sky City, there was a plan to build a plaza here, so it was currently an empty space. Yang Dingtian stood on the Demon Vulture King and looked at the densely packed people below. It was really densely packed and dark. Almost all of Cloud Sky City's citizens were here. This formation was comparable to the formation of hundreds of thousands of enemy troops. Yang Dingtian looked at everyone and spoke loudly. From tomorrow onwards, a giant stone tablet will be erected in this place below me to commemorate our great victory. Before Yang Dingtian could finish his sentence, countless people started to cheer like a tidal wave. Long live, long live. We have won. Everyone, let's celebrate and be happy. Then, let's bring this happiness and celebration to the rest of our lives. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's 2 hands were still carrying the 2 one-year-old dolls. Although the noise was very loud, the 2 dolls had been tossing and turning for the entire night, and had already fallen asleep in Yang Dingtian's arms. No matter how loud the noise was, they wouldn't wake up. The 2 children in my arms are very ordinary. In Cloud Sky City, there are many such children. They are very cute. They are the future of Cloud Sky City. However, they are also a little thin and weak. The house they live in is not good. As for the food, it's not good either. Yang Dingtian looked at the 2 children in his arms and smiled. What does this prove? This proves that we have not done enough. Therefore, this great victory is not our end. Instead, it is our starting point. The starting point of our construction frenzy. Next, we have to unite our wills and build our home. We have to build our Cloud Sky City into the happiest and richest paradise in the chaotic mainland. Long live! Long live! Yang Dingtian's words were very ordinary. However, they pierced into the hearts of everyone present. Everyone present could only feel their bodies trembling as waves of fiery energy surged out from their bodies. However, they couldn't express their emotions in any other way. They could only keep shouting "Long live." Then, Yang Dingtian returned the two sleeping children to their parents. Then, he sat on the Demon Eagle King and flew towards Cloud Sky Castle. City Lord, the Lord of Qin City, and the Lord of the Divine Weapons Villa request to meet with you, Tang Buizhao reported. There's no hurry. Let them dry. Yang Dingtian said, Get ready. I'll treat them to dinner tonight. Yes, Tang Buizhao said. After Yang Dingtian returned to Cloud Sky Castle, he didn't recover his mystic meridians immediately. Instead, he lay on the bed and slept soundly. As for Qin Jiaojiao and Yin Yan, they had been worried the whole day. At this moment, they couldn't take it anymore. They fell on the bed and slept soundly with Yang Dingtian. Between husband and wife, there was no congratulation for the victory, or the husband was amazing. The three of them just lay on the bed and slept. They slept until the afternoon. Yang Dingtian first rejected Qin Wanqiu and Xiu Wanjia's request for a meeting. Then, he walked towards the depths of the dungeon. This dungeon originally locked up Yaorao. Now Qin Chichi was locked up. Yaorao was personally watching over her. Seeing Yang Dingtian come down, Yaorao stood up and said to Yang Dingtian, Don't worry, I'll keep a lookout for you. Yang Dingtian glared at her fiercely. Yang Dingtian came to the front of the dungeon. At this moment, Qin Chichi was naked and lying in the iron dungeon. Your husband emphasized that I shouldn't cuckold him. Do you think I should comply? Yang Dingtian smiled faintly. Chapter 493. Defile me. Qin Chichi laid in the cell and gently raised her head. She shook her head and said, You won't. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be startled. Qin Chichi crawled up and sat cross-legged. Speaking of which, she was considered an extremely unique beauty that Yang Dingtian had seen. Her beauty wasn't inferior to Shiman Yinyan's, but she was one of the few beauties that Yang Dingtian had seen that was slender. However, this kind of slender body didn't reveal her bones. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. She appeared to be very graceful, and moving. She opened her legs and sat cross-legged in front of Yang Dingtian without any hesitation. I'm not Qin Wanqiu's daughter. You should know that. Qin Chichi said, People like us are called spies. There are spies in every faction. We are a group. Evil ways people secretly nurtured us, and then sent us to various factions. Most of us were adopted as daughters, while some became wives or concubines of the faction's patriarchs. Of course, these factions are clear about our identities. The reason why they accepted us is to maintain a little relationship with evil ways. They aren't willing to completely block the path. Yang Dingtian didn't reply. Lung Yinmei was a spy sent to Sky Phoenix Pavilion. Qin Chichi said, however, Duan Ruyan had a bigger heart than men. She didn't care about Lung Yinmei's evil ways identity. She had been promoting her and nurturing her. However, I didn't expect that Lung Yinmei still rebelled. Yang Dingtian continued to listen to her and didn't reply. Right, wasn't there a very famous spy 200 years ago, Wooden Sword Castle's Li Tianxiao? He betrayed the Tiando League and joined evil ways. He killed millions of the Southwest Alliance army and destroyed the entire Wooden Sword Castle. Wooden Sword Castle, the leader of the 9 sects, was reduced to a village castle. Qin Chichi said, Actually, Li Tianxiao was wronged. The real spy was Cloud Sky City's princess. She was the woman that Li Tianxiao and Qin City's third young master were desperately chasing after. Later on, it was rumored that she was tortured to death. She wasn't the Cloud Heaven City Lord's biological daughter. She was the one who seduced Li Tianxiao into depravity and betrayed the Tiando League to join the evil ways. Yang Dingtian shuddered. This case had been passed down for hundreds of years. Li Tianxiao was the biggest traitor in the Tiando League, and he was already a disgrace in history. Who would have thought that there was actually such a secret? The real spy was actually the pure and kind princess of Cloud Sky City, who had attracted the sympathy of countless people. Of course, there has been a spy in Cloud Sky City all these years. The spy's identity is much higher than mine, and the spy's identity is absolutely confidential, Qin Chichi said. Originally, I didn't know at all, and I didn't have the right to know. Later, because he fell in love with someone he shouldn't have, he exposed himself. I believe you know who that person is. Of course, I don't know her true identity. I'm just guessing. Yang Dingtian's eyebrows twitched. Of course, he knew who the spy was. It was Ningning Shiman Ningning. Ningning was the spy with the highest identity. However, who was the one who made her spy by Shiman Wuya's side? Perhaps they had already seen Shiman Wuya become the number one in the world a long time ago? Yang Dingtian guess. As a spy, do I hope that the successor of the Temple of Annihilation will appear or not? Qin Chichi asked. Not appear? Yang Dingtian was puzzled. Yes, I don't hope that the young master of the Temple of Annihilation will appear, Qin Chichi said. If he doesn't appear, it means that we will never be activated. Martial Aunt Lung Yinmei can always be Pavilion Master Duan Ruyan's best right-hand woman. She doesn't need to betray her. As for me, I can continue to give advice to my father, and continue to be the think tank of Qin City. Of course, I can forget about fighting with Qin Huayu for the position of the city lord. Spies can't be the leader of a sect. They can control from behind the scenes, but they can't make their own decisions. Qin Chichi sighed softly, and lay down gently again. She bowed slightly to Yang Dingtian and said, How good would it be if the young master of the Temple of Annihilation didn't appear? It has been more than 100 years. Every spy has lived a peaceful life. But when it was our turn, he suddenly appeared, and then we were activated. In an instant, we turned from a person to a chess piece that can't resist fate. Yang Dingtian, I tried to struggle. Qin Chichi looked at Yang Dingtian. Do you still remember when I attacked the southwest continent? At that time, the young master of the Temple of Annihilation had already appeared, and I was officially activated. In fact, I was activated a little earlier. It was probably when you went to the Dongli grassland. At that time, I led 100,000 troops from Qin City and occupied Nanzhou City. You led the army through. I struggled and threw myself into your arms at that time. You might think that I was just fooling you, but it was true. Shiman Ningning, for love, resisted her fate. I was very envious, so I also tried to struggle and resist. I wanted to rely on a powerhouse with an absolute will of justice. Qin Chichi smiled bitterly. In the end, although you had an absolute will of justice, you weren't a powerhouse. At least, you weren't at that time. Maybe, but as a woman, no matter how smart and cunning I was, it was difficult for me to have a long-term vision, so I couldn't see it. More importantly, my will to resist was not firm at that time. And you were full of doubts, so in the end, it was left unsettled. Sigh. Qin Chichi sighed and said, If you had clenched your teeth and really wanted me, the ending might have been different. Because at that time, Ning Wuming had already proposed to me. Once I gave myself to you, it meant that I had completely broken with that side. Although I didn't succeed in resisting, although I led 100,000 troops to sweep the southwest continent, and my momentum was incomparably fierce. But in fact I was passive at that time. So much so that when you released Duan Ruyan, under her leadership, my 100,000 troops were defeated bit by bit. This was admittedly due to Duan Ruyan's bravery, but it also had nothing to do with my passivity. Qin Chichi said, My passivity continued until his arrival. Who was he? Of course it was Ning Wuming. He attracted me at once. To be honest, I compared you to him in my heart at that time. He was completely radiant, while you were dim and dull, like a country bumpkin. In terms of appearance, bearing, cultivation, and wisdom, he far surpassed you. Qin Chichi's beautiful eyes fell into confusion. Moreover, he was much more determined than you. I sent him to you, but you didn't dare to touch him. The moment he came, he directly pressed me to the ground like a wild beast. He made me suffer so much that I wanted to die, until I completely sank into oblivion. At this time, Qin Chichi smiled at Yang Dingtian and said, I'm sorry to disappoint you. You might think that even though Ning Wuming and I were engaged, we were still pure. No, the first time he saw me, he didn't even say a word before he dominated me. Yang Dingtian smiled speechlessly. Then, I fell in love with him. I fell in love with him without any resistance. Qin Chichi said. You can't imagine the kind of person he is. It was as if there was a ball of fire in his eyes, burning you all the time. He completely ignited my heart, and also my ambition. At that time, I made up my mind to use my wisdom to sweep the entire Western region. I will completely control Qin City, World Society, Cloud Sky City, and the Southwest mainland in my hands. Then, I will give them to Ning Wuming as my dowry. I want to become the most noble and unparalleled bride in this world. When she said this, Qin Chichi's beautiful eyes were filled with boundless flames. Then she sighed softly, making her beautiful body curl up even more. She said, however, the more beautiful the dream, the more painful it is to wake up. He doesn't love me. He loves another woman. That woman is more beautiful than me. You've seen her before. She is his sister-in-law Wu Maji. Thus, my relationship with him changed from absolute intimacy to a kind of enemy. Yang Dingtian, I am a very stubborn person, Qin Chichi said. If I gave myself to you back then, I wouldn't care how many women you have, because I don't love you that much. But since I fell in love with him, I completely wanted to dominate him. Thus, this kind of love instantly turned into hatred. My love is gone, so what's left is only ambition, Qin Chichi said. Then, I used the power of evil ways, and the power of the Temple of Annihilation, to control the crusade against Cloud Sky City, and force the world to side with me. In front of my ambition, Ning Wuming could only smile helplessly. Then he took half a step back, and stood behind me, watching my performance. What I wanted was to take down the entire Western region by myself. I wanted to become the queen of the Western region. I wanted to be on equal footing with Ning Wuming and Zhu Qingzhu. I wanted to have a place in front of the master of the Temple of Annihilation. I wanted to prove that I wasn't inferior to him. I wanted to make him regret. For this goal, I went to the Dongli grasslands and visited the highest spy of the Temple of Annihilation in the Dongli grasslands. I requested a large amount of wolf demon army. Because of this, Lung Yanmei was ravaged by the leader of the wolf demon army for 3 days and 3 nights. That leader had a strange taste. He didn't like me but liked Lung Yanmei. And I was also enjoyed by the highest spy of the Dongli grasslands for 3 days and 3 nights. Qin Chichi smiled and said, Then, I went to Zhongzhou to ask for the Golden Eagle army. The number I originally wanted was 10,000. Then, I sent myself to Zhu Qingzhu's bed. At this point, Yang Dingtian's nerves jumped. This woman was really crazy. In order to achieve her goal, she didn't hesitate to sell her body. At this time, my husband appeared in front of me. I didn't feel ashamed at all. Instead, I looked at him provocatively. He went forward, wrapped me in his large clothes, and carried me away. Then, he and Zhu Qingzhu worked together to solve everything for me. The Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army, the Tiando League, millions of soldiers, 30,000 Golden Eagle Army, and countless killing machines. He was willing to stand behind me and let me lead the show to destroy Cloud Sky City. Qin Chichi's eyes reddened. Also, he said something. He said that he loved that woman, but it didn't mean that he didn't love me. Then he wanted me again. Qin Chichi said, Women are like this. Every time they are wanted they become weak. After being wanted more than 10 times, although I was still strong, my heart had already melted. At that time, I had already decided that after destroying Cloud Sky City and completing young Master Li Ming's strategy, I would completely compromise with him. If I couldn't monopolize him, then so be it. In the end, we were completely defeated. Then at the last moment he threw me to you. Qin Chichi took a deep breath and said, Then, everything I had was destroyed. My ambitions, my dreams, my everything were destroyed. However, who cared? I was just a chess piece. I really couldn't imagine that a person could hide so deeply. Yang Dingtian, do you think I'm smart? Rarely seen, Yang Dingtian said. Yes, a woman like me falling in love with a man like him is really shameful. Qin Chichi smiled bitterly. If I had known, I would have loved you. Although you don't have much charm, at least you are real and forever. Yang Dingtian smiled helplessly again. Okay, I'm done. Qin Chichi said. How are you going to deal with me? Tell me. Death by 1,000 cuts, Yang Dingtian said. Okay, Qin Chichi said indifferently. But don't use the evil soul art to extract my soul. I'll give you the location of the 3 souls. If you take it away, I won't be able to resurrect. Of course, if you're still worried, you can enter my mind and destroy my memories of the soul detachment technique. That way when I die, the soul detachment technique won't be activated. Then you can kill me completely. Right, what else do you need me to do? For example, the evil ways hidden forces in the Western world, the terrorists who caused the plague and so on. I don't know everything because my forces in the Western world are independent of his. However, a large part of the evil ways arrangements in the Western world are under my control. This list is very big. There should be over 10,000 people. I can give it to you. Qin Chichi said. Right, there's also Duan Ruyan. She's not dead but imprisoned. We plan to forcibly raise her to the martial grandmaster level, and then refine her into a war demon puppet. I can give you her general location. Then Qin Chichi fell into deep thought again. After thinking for a while, she said, right, although the Temple of Annihilation believes that my Western strategy will definitely not fail. Just in case, they still made plans to fail. Even though my rank isn't high enough, and I have no right to know. However, I vaguely know that the Central Province's strategy is just an additional deployment. The Temple of Annihilation's real deployment is within the Tiando League. Once I fail, that deployment will immediately be activated. The following battle will be even more covert, but also more intense. Sorry, that's all I know. My rank isn't high enough, so I can't know more. Immediately, Yang Dingtian looked at Qin Chichi in complete shock. He didn't ask Qin Chichi to surrender, nor did he ask her to tell him the secret. However, Qin Chichi acted as if she wasn't proactive enough and revealed everything. Finally, Yang Dingtian couldn't help but say, do they know that you're betraying the Temple of Annihilation like this? Qin Chichi frowned and thought for a while, then said, first, they don't think that I would betray the Temple of Annihilation. You don't know this, but people with evil energy don't care about other forces at all, so there's no betrayal at all. Secondly, even if I did betray them, they wouldn't care. That's because I don't have the right to know their next strategy. I'm only guessing a little bit. As for the hidden forces in the West, they've basically abandoned them after the failure of my Western strategy. Then why did you betray the Temple of Annihilation? Don't say that it's because of love. Yang Dingtian said. In fact, I've thought it through. At the last moment, Ning Wuming wanted me to kill you by 1,000 cuts and extract your soul. It wasn't to kill you but to save you. Qin Chichi's delicate body trembled. Then she lowered her head, tears falling. Yang Dingtian continued. He knows that I hate you to the bone. If he told me not to kill you, I would definitely kill you. So he simply put on the most heartless and shameless act, forcing me to kill you by 1,000 cuts. He wanted you to hate him to the extreme, to make me believe that you would completely surrender, that you would completely break away from the evil ways. This way, perhaps you would have some value, and I wouldn't kill you. Then, Yang Dingtian continued. Of course, he's still shameless and vicious. Nothing can hide the fact that he threw you out as a shield in order to save his life. However, he definitely wouldn't be so shameless as to tell me not to rape you, to let me kill you by 1,000 cuts, so that you wouldn't harm him in the future. Qin Chichi was silent for a moment, then she wiped her tears and said, I know. You're really not very smart. You only thought of it a day later than me. Yang Dingtian said. Since it's not because of love, why did you betray the Temple of Annihilation? Don't tell me that you're afraid of death. You have nothing now, and you're living a life worse than death. You betrayed the Temple of Annihilation without any reason. Qin Chichi was silent for a moment. Then, she stood up and walked towards Yang Dingtian. Then, she walked in front of Yang Dingtian and waved at her. You come here. Yang Dingtian gently floated in front of the prison. Qin Chichi grabbed Yang Dingtian's hand and pressed it against her abdomen. Can you feel it? Qin Chichi asked. Yang Dingtian closed her eyes and felt it. Then she felt a little throbbing. I'm pregnant. It's been 3 months. It's his child. Qin Chichi's tears fell. I'm not afraid of death, But I don't want my child to not be born. Therefore, I'm willing to do anything. I know that you once found a prostitute for Yang Zhang and left him a descendant. Then you destroyed him. Yang Dingtian, I'll use everything in exchange for my child's life. Qin Shiqi slowly knelt in front of Yang Dingtian and said, as long as my child is born, I'll die in front of you. I won't go back on my words. Before that, I'll do anything you want me to do, I'll agree. Evil ways aside, even if I have to go to hell, even if I have to sacrifice myself to the devil, I'll agree. Yang Dingtian was stunned. After a long time she slowly said he knows. I don't want him to know. I want to let him know only after I win, Qin Shiqi said. Then, she directly knelt down and pressed her forehead against Yang Dingtian's feet. She begged, City Lord Yang, please spare my child's life. When my child is born, I'll die. Chapter 494. Yang Dingtian looked at Qin Shiqi for a long time before saying, your child has evil spirit energy in his body. Yes, Qin Shiqi continued. However, we only have 4th grade and 5th grade evil spirit energy derivatives. This kind of energy can make us stronger and prevent our souls from dispersing after leaving our bodies. It can also affect our personalities, but it can't decide our will. Not only us, even Ning Wuming's evil spirit energy can't do it. Therefore, even if my child has evil spirit energy, as long as he is nurtured by you, he can still become a righteous person. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, good. Then give me the list of all the spies you know and their powers. Also, give me your best substitute. I need to execute you in front of the public. Also give me all your soul condensed shadows. In short, you have to provide everything you can. Then the moment the child is born, I will kill you. There is no room for discussion. Yes, Qin Shiqi said with a trembling voice. Then, she knelt down again and gently kissed Yang Dingtian's toes. Then, she returned to the special prison that had once imprisoned Yao Rao. That day, after Yang Zheng had successfully left behind a descendant, Yang Dingtian had immediately destroyed him. Then Qin Shiqi wouldn't be an exception. No matter how beautiful she was, no matter how valuable she was. At night, Yang Dingtian was in the VIP room, entertaining the 2 big shots, Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjia. At the start, Yang Dingtian only ate and drank. He didn't have much interaction with the 2 big shots. With the craftiness of these 2 old foxes, the awkwardness from yesterday had long disappeared. Here, let me first congratulate you on your great victory. Qin Wanqiu smiled and raised his cup. Yang Dingtian also raised his cup and drank. That's right, nephew. We are about to lead the army back to the territory, Qin Wanqiu said. Regarding your reputation, I also feel that it is time to resolve it. Owner Qiu, and I will speak up for you at the Taekwondo League. We will strive to help you clear your name and restore your reputation. If it's possible, let Cloud Heaven City return to the Heavenly Dao Alliance. According to Qin Wanqiu, even if Yang Dingtian won, it would still be difficult for Cloud Sky City to return to the Taekwondo League. As for the wooden sword castle that was removed from the list, it had long been thrown beyond the 9 heavens. Many thanks to Sect Lord Qin. Yang Dingtian said, you're welcome. We've always had a tacit understanding between us. Qin Wanqiu laughed heartily. However, I think that cannon of yours is a little interesting. Can you give me 1,000 cannons and tell us how to make them, especially the cannonballs? If that's the case, I guarantee that I'll bring it up during the Taekwondo League meeting to let Cloud Sky City return to the Taekwondo League and restore Cloud Sky City's righteous status. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, what if Cloud Sky City is righteous? What about the side that attacked Cloud Sky City? What about the Ning clan of the South Sea? Qin Wanqiu said, this is a complete misunderstanding. All of this is because of Leng Yanmei and Qin Shiqi. These 2 people manipulated the entire scheme. Fortunately, our Western world was united and wise, and didn't let their scheme succeed. Yang Dingtian said, that means that if I win this battle, it'll only restore my reputation. At most, it'll restore Cloud Sky City's reputation. Only Qin Shiqi and Leng Yanmei, These two people who are bound to die will be responsible. The Ning clan of the South Sea, Ning Wuming, the Temple of Annihilation, and Zhu Qingzhu don't need to be responsible, right? Qin Wancho smiled and said, "Of course that's the case." Yang Dingtian said, "Then what about our Western world? What will the situation be like in the future? We all know that even if the evil ways completely fail in the Western world, they won't be able to stop their invasion of the world. Their next step, the Zhongzhou strategy, will begin. Are we just going to watch the entire Zhongzhou, almost half of the world's population, fall into the hands of the evil ways?" Qin Wancho's smile gradually disappeared and he said, "Nephew, I admit that I misjudged you previously. Your talent, your ambition, and your willpower far exceed my imagination. You've obtained an incomparably great victory. However, you can only do as much as you have the strength. As a leader, the biggest taboo is to be carried away by victory and overestimate your own strength." Then, Qin Wancho said solemnly, "Therefore, I suggest that the Western world return to its previous state after the war, including the current state of the World Assembly. Now that the war is over, I feel that the Devil Dragon Army needs to be returned to the World Assembly. The Devil Eagle Army is a force of the Zhongzhou after all. It's very disadvantageous for them to be entrenched in the Western world for a long time. Therefore, return to Splitting Earth City as soon as possible, and don't stay in Cloud Sky City." Yang Dingtian smiled at Qiu Wanjie and said, "Owner Qiu, you also have the same opinion?" Qiu Wanjie smiled faintly and nodded his head. "I have already discussed this matter with City Lord Qin." Now, Yang Dingtian was able to see through their intentions. After this war, the rise of Cloud Sky City and Yang Dingtian could no longer be stopped. Evil ways also couldn't be stopped from withdrawing from the Western world. The victory of this war directly made Yang Dingtian one of the three big shots of the Western world. He had the qualifications to be on equal footing with Qin Wancho and Qiu Wanjie. In other words, Qin Wancho and Qiu Wanjie agreed that Yang Dingtian would inherit Shimen Wuia's prestige and become one of the three big shots of the Western world. However, they would still compromise with evil ways. She's in the outer perimeter of the Temple of Annihilation. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers that you annihilated were merely mercenaries from the barbarian tribe in the Sunset Mountain Range? You haven't even encountered the power of evil ways. Your victory may seem glorious, but it's actually not worth mentioning." Yang Dingtian smiled. "Then may I ask sect leader Qin, what other power does evil ways have?" The Ning clan of the South Sea is the only armed force that evil ways have. This time in Cloud Sky City, more than half of them have been annihilated. Evil ways, what other power do they have? Is Black Heaven sect and its subsidiary forces enough? Qin Wancho said coldly. Green Master Zhu, can you deal with him? Can you deal with the other Grand Master Grand Elder of Black Heaven sect? Can you deal with the spies of Black Heaven sect? Li Ming, can you deal with them? Mu Dan, can you deal with them? Queen Devil Queen, can you deal with them? Temple of Blood, Joyless Palace, can you deal with them? And the spies that evil ways have placed for more than 100 years, can you deal with them? I've already told you. Your victory may seem glorious, but it's actually not worth mentioning. You want an army? Is the 10 million soldiers in the Dongli grassland enough? Can you destroy hundreds of thousands of soldiers with just 2,000 cannons? Can you destroy 10 million soldiers? Yang Dingtian was so angry that he laughed. Then, are you going to watch the evil ways take over the entire central state? Or even the eastern state? In the end, our entire western region will be wiped out by the 10 million Legion of Doom? You may be able to hide today, but can you hide tomorrow? Qin Wancho shook his head and said, Yang Dingtian, there won't be a Legion of Doom. There won't be a Legion of Doom? Yang Dingtian laughed coldly. Then where are the 10 million Maori barbarians in the world of ice and snow? They're all dead. Qin Wancho said, I've already sent people to the world of ice and snow to investigate many times. A few hundred feet under the snow, countless Maori barbarians' corpses were found. This is a strategic blackmail by evil ways. They can no longer build a Legion of Doom. Therefore, they killed all the Maori barbarians and buried them underground, disappearing from the world. This is the biggest strategic blackmail by evil ways. They made us think that there will be a Legion of Doom. But there won't be a Legion of Doom. Yang Dingtian laughed coldly. And then, Qin Wancho said. And then things became simple. The Demon King Wentian wants to rule the world, so he has to change his method. He doesn't want to use the Legion of Doom to sweep the world, but to fight in the dark. That's why there are so many spies, and why there's a spy with such a high status like Zhu Qingzhu. Therefore, they want to attack the Tiando League from within the Tiando League. Through the Tiando League, they want to rule the world. In other words, this doomsday war won't be a large-scale war involving tens of millions of people, but a transfer of power within the Tiando League. Evil ways will completely control the upper echelons of the Tiando League, then control all the forces, and finally complete the rule of the world. Yang Dingtian laughed. And then, Qin Wancho said, then, as long as my Qin city obeys the Demon King Wentian's rule on the surface, it will continue to exist. To put it bluntly, as long as you don't destroy Qin city, as long as you let me continue to rule my territory, I don't care if the Tiando League completely changes. I also don't care if the Lord of the Temple of Annihilation becomes the leader of the Tiando League. I don't even care if the Tiando League still exists. Yang Dingtian. In other words, you're willing to completely kneel before the evil ways in exchange for a chance to live? Qin Wancho licked his lips. That's right. Or to be more direct, the evil ways won't let go of only you, Yang Dingtian. You don't have the authority to drag us down with you. Moreover, your complete victory this time will buy you more time. I can only guarantee that no matter what the evil ways do to you, I won't participate. But if you want to rely on a single victory to make us fight against the evil ways with you, that's impossible. Qin Wancho laughed. We don't mind helping you trample Qin Chichi and Leng Yinmei to death 10,000 times, but we definitely won't help you fight against the evil ways. Or even Zhu Qingzhu. Yang Dingtian nodded. I understand. Then can the two of you give me some time to consider? I'll give you an answer by tomorrow at the latest. All right, nephew, Qin Wancho said. After leaving the VIP pavilion, Yang Dingtian immediately called for a meeting. All the members of the committee, including the commanders of the Demon Dragon Army and Kuei Si of the Demon Vulture Army, were present. I've already discussed with Qin Wancho and Qiu Wanjie, Yang Dingtian said. They've decided to withdraw their troops back to their base. Then, during the Tiando League meeting, my reputation will be restored. However, whether Cloud Heaven City will return to the Tiando League is still uncertain. Once this was said, everyone present was shocked. After this battle, not only was there no way to punish the Ning clan of the South Sea and the Black Heaven sect, but there was also no way to publicize the evil ways. Instead, only restoring Yang Dingtian's reputation, and even Cloud Heaven City, and the Wooden Sword Castle couldn't return to Cloud Heaven City? This was too ridiculous, too shameless. Zhu Hongxue couldn't believe it. He laughed coldly. Then who exactly did we fight this battle with? Who did we defeat? You should at least make it clear. Yang Dingtian laughed. The traitors of the Northwest Tiando League led by Qin Chichi and Leng Yinmei. These two people deceived the Tiando League and slandered me, Yang Dingtian. Ha ha ha. Ha. Zhu Hongxue laughed. Is there anything more ridiculous than this in this world? As for the others, they were trembling in anger. Qin Huayu clenched his fist and said with a trembling voice, Are they idiots? Do they think that by compromising and surrendering, the evil ways will let them go? Yang Dingtian said, They're not stupid, they're just too smart. They think that by surrendering and compromising they can live. Your father dug out hundreds of thousands of Maori barbarian corpses a few hundred meters under the ice and snow. He thinks that there aren't tens of millions of Legion of Doom. He thinks that this is an apocalyptic battle, just a change of shell. He thinks that there's nothing wrong with being loyal to the Demon King Wentian. Or more specifically, as long as he can protect Qin City. What does the death of Yang Dingtian, the destruction of Cloud Heaven City, the destruction of Earth-Splitting City, and the destruction of the Cloud Heaven Pavilion have to do with him? Yang Dingtian continued. Next, the evil ways of Zhongzhou, led by Zhu Qingzhu and the Ning clan of the South Sea, will start the Zhongzhou strategy. Their goal is to conquer the entire Zhongzhou, and their most direct targets are Earth-Splitting City and the Cloud Heaven Pavilion. Qin City and the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa are prepared to remain neutral and watch from the sidelines. They might even secretly support the Black Heaven sect and the Ning clan in exchange for the Evil Way's complete retreat from the Western world. Suddenly, Earth-Splitting City's young Lord Kuei Ning trembled violently and made a sound of gnashing teeth. Yang Dingtian said, "Here I repeat. I will not sit by and watch the Evil Ways attack Earth-Splitting City and the Cloud Heaven Pavilion. Protecting Earth-Splitting City and the Cloud Heaven Pavilion is protecting ourselves. I will do my best. I want everyone here to do their best to protect Earth-Splitting City, even if they have to give up their lives. I don't care what the Evil Ways give me or what they promise me. In short, there is no room for compromise between me and the Evil Ways. The Evil Ways, and I will fight to the death until the Evil Ways completely disappear from this world." Then, Yang Dingtian looked at Kuei Ning and said, "Commander Kuei, don't worry. The day Earth-Splitting City starts the war is also the day I, Yang Dingtian, Cloud Heaven City, and the entire Western world will do our best to protect Earth-Splitting City." Kuei Ning stood up, his eyes burning. He bowed and said, "I will always follow in your footsteps and fight the Evil Ways to the end." "Good," Yang Dingtian said. "After this is set, we will immediately carry out the next step of our strategy. I said before that the victory of Cloud Heaven City is not the end. It is only the beginning. Since we were able to win the first battle against the Evil Ways, then we can also win the second and third battles. Next, I will announce that our wartime committee will not be disbanded. Instead, it will be expanded to become the Midwest Wartime Committee. I suggest that Earth-Splitting City's young Lord Kuei Ning and Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's young Lord Chou Yiming become members of the committee," Yang Dingtian said loudly. Chou Yiming wasn't present, but when he was included in the committee, everyone was stunned. But after a moment of shock, everyone raised their hands to vote and agreed that Kuei Ning and Chou Yiming would join the committee. Yang Dingtian said, "The Battle of Cloud Heaven City has just ended. Evil Ways will still need some time before they can start the war in Middle State. I don't know how long this period of time will be. Maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months, but it shouldn't be more than 3 months. Evil Ways will definitely do their best to destroy the entire Middle State. During this period of time, we need to do the following things. First, take advantage of the momentum of our victory. Take advantage of the fact that no one can see the differences between us and Qin Wanzhou and Qiu Wanjia. If Song Xiao is willing to compromise, then pull him into the battle. If he isn't willing to compromise, then completely abandon him and imprison him. Let Chunhua or Lihua completely control the World Guild. We must ensure that the entire World Guild is in our hands. We need an endless supply of demon dragon mounts." Song Chunhua hadn't woken up yet. Song Lihua was present, so she calmly replied, "Yes." Yang Dingtian's first order shocked everyone present. Second, we will soon receive a list of names. This list contains the hidden forces of Evil Ways in the entire Western world. There will be more than 10,000 of them. We will form a secret team to kill all of these people and completely cleanse the entire Western world. Yes. Third, I will issue the Second World Extermination Order in Yang Dingtian's declaration. White Cloud City has completely colluded with Evil Ways and betrayed the Tiando League. We will completely exterminate the entire White Cloud City and uproot it. Everyone present trembled and shouted, "Yes." Fourth, Yang Dingtian sighed and said, "This is also my most difficult task. I don't know if I should do it tonight or after completing the first 3 tasks." Instantly, everyone present was puzzled. Yang Dingtian said, "In view of Qin Wanzhou and Qiu Wanjia's stubbornness and ignorance, in order to prepare for the upcoming Middle State battle, we need to have sufficient strategic strength and a complete and pure rear. I suggest that we make a move on Qin Wanzhou and Qiu Wanjia, or force them to completely stand on the side of justice and oppose Evil Ways, or we can cripple their martial arts and imprison them for life." Once these words were spoken, everyone was extremely shocked. Then, everyone looked at Qin Huayu. Qin Huayu's body trembled. Then he said, I will completely obey the orders of the committee and carry out sect leader Yang Dingtian's will. Instantly, everyone understood why Qiu Yiming was pulled into the committee. If they really made a move on Qiu Wanjie, and Qiu Wanjie refused to compromise, they would immediately imprison Qiu Wanjie and let Qiu Yiming become the divine weapon manners master. In short, they had to unify the entire Western world in the shortest time possible. Then, they would free up their hands and have a decisive battle with the evil ways in Middle State. Everyone present was completely shocked by Yang Dingtian's strategy. After experiencing the ecstasy of this great victory, all of them started to think about the following situation. However, they were basically thinking about how to restore Cloud Sky cities and Yang Dingtian's position in the Tiando League. Then they would determine the nature of the evil ways. In the long term, there was nothing else. However, Yang Dingtian's strategy was to unify the entire Western world and then rely on the Western world to have a decisive battle with the evil ways in Middle State. This strategy was something that no one present had even thought about. Yang Dingtian continued, completely control the world society, eliminate the hidden forces of the evil ways, destroy Cloud Sky City, and make a move on Qin Wanqiu, Qiu Wanjie, and the other stubborn fools. These 4 matters should be completed within 2 months. The sooner the better. I estimate that in about half a year to a year, the Middle State strategy will completely come to an end. Regardless of victory or defeat, it will come to an end. The war in Middle State is the war that will decide the fate of this world. As long as we win the war in Middle State, we will change from being passive to being proactive. We will basically be able to completely eliminate all the forces of the evil ways in the chaotic world. This will lay the foundation for victory in the future Great War. Yes, everyone shouted in unison. Yang Dingtian continued. Then next, let's vote on whether we should immediately make a move on Qiu Wanjie and Qin Wanqiu. Chapter 495. Note: 5,600 words for the second update. Today's update is 12,000 words. Monthly votes. I really need monthly votes. Brothers, I'm really begging you, Yang Dingtian said. Next, let's decide if we should attack Qiu Wanjie and Qin Wanqiu immediately. Instantly, everyone fell into a short silence. If we attack immediately, can we do it? Qin Huayu asked. It's very difficult, Yang Dingtian said. At least, we have to wait until my master fully recovers. Then, we might have to wait until tomorrow. If we threaten to destroy the million-strong army in front of Cloud Sky City, can we force Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie to compromise? Zhu Hongxue asked. No, Qin Huayu said. Even though Qin City has 400,000 soldiers outside Cloud Sky City, if we destroy them all, my father might feel heartache, but he definitely won't compromise. Because the territory that Qin City controls now is more than 10,000 miles. As long as they are willing, they can build a million-strong army. Shimenlai said. Also, we have less than 100,000 rounds left. It's not enough to destroy a million-strong army. Madame Shimen usually didn't speak, but she still said, I feel that the million-strong army in front of Cloud Sky City, let's not talk about whether we can destroy them. I feel that they aren't completely enemies. It's not good to destroy them. Yang Dingtian said. Yes, they aren't completely enemies now. In fact, from what we saw in Sky Thunder City, the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's army is a proud and righteous army that can fight alongside us. If they are destroyed by us here, it will be a pity. Song Lihua said. If we attack City Lord Qin and Manor Lord Qiu here, there will be 2 problems. First, will the million-strong army outside the city become chaotic? Second, the 2 seniors are our guests. If we attack our guests, won't it go against justice? Qin Huayu said. But now is the best time to attack. If we wait until they return to Qin City and Divine Weapons Mountain Villa, they will have experts protecting them. It won't be so easy to take them down. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and fell into a dilemma. Actually, the best outcome would be to force Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie to stand on his side and fight against evil ways to the end. After all, one of them was a mid-level great grandmaster, while the other was a high-level great grandmaster. Once they joined Yang Dingtian, Zhengzhou State's strategy would be much easier. Even if they faced Zhu Qingzhu's great grandmaster strength, they might still have a chance of winning. Crippling their martial arts and imprisoning them for life was a last resort. Furthermore, even if Yang Dingtian supported Qin Huayu and Zhou Yiming, it would still be very difficult for them to control Qin City and the divine weapons manor. Qin Huayu was still alright. He was already outstanding enough. However, it was difficult for Zhou Yiming to control the divine weapons manor. And in the central state strategy, the divine weapons manor's role might be even more important than Qin City. After all, the small crystal crossbows of the divine weapons villa were too powerful. Let's vote. Those who are in favor of making a move against Qin Wanshou and Qiu Wanjia, raise your hand. Yang Dingtian said. The crowd exchanged glances with one another, but no one dared to make a move. Alright, then it's decided. Let's complete the first 3 steps of the strategy and place Qin Wanshou and Qiu Wanjia in the last step of the 4-step strategy. Yang Dingtian said. Song Lihua, especially Tang Buozhao, immediately come up with a comprehensive strategy to deal with the 2 sect masters. The best strategy is to force the 2 of them to compromise. Crippling their martial arts and imprisoning them for life is the worst strategy. Yes, Tang Buozhao said. Tang Buozhao was Yang Dingtian's best strategist. Handing the entire matter over to him was the best choice. Then the meeting is adjourned, Yang Dingtian ordered. For the next few days, the first task is to clean up the battlefield, especially the blood pupil demonic army's battlefield of death. The second task is to make the East and West Corps retreat. It's best to complete these tasks within a few days. Then, we will immediately lead our troops north and force World Society's Song Shao. Yes, the blood pupil demonic army's battlefield of death has already turned into a pool of blood. The cleanup of this place is extremely important. It even concerns the fate of Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian said loudly. It must be completed within a short period of time. Yes. Next, Yang Dingtian only had one meeting with Qin Wanshou and Qiu Wanjia. The content was simple. Yang Dingtian was very regretful about their choice. Of course, this was also the most reasonable reaction. Qin Wanshou also expressed his regret. Then both sides parted on bad terms. However, the 2 of them had expressed that they wanted to bring Qin Huayu and Qiu Yiming back. Yang Dingtian didn't reject them, but said that he would listen to their own wishes. In the end, Qin Huayu naturally rejected them. However, even Qiu Yiming said that he would return to the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa after a period of time. This made Yang Dingtian somewhat surprised. Then, Qin Wanshou and Qiu Yiming said that they would immediately lead their armies back to their respective camps. Yang Dingtian tried to persuade them to stay, saying that he hoped that the 3 parties would sign a non-aggression agreement. Things like signing agreements were very rare in the Primal Chaos continent and were very fashionable. However, Qin Wanshou and Qiu Yiming didn't reject it. After all, both parties had already decided to take a stand and let Yang Dingtian and Cloud Sky City perish on their own. Since this was a war with Cloud Sky City, they would try their best to delay it and avoid fighting with Cloud Sky City. Next, they wouldn't send their troops to invade Cloud Sky City. Then, Yang Dingtian arranged for a solemn signing ceremony. In the main hall of Cloud Sky City, in front of many people, the 3 parties signed the non-aggression agreement very solemnly. Qin Wanshou, Qiu Wanjia, and Yang Dingtian used their own special xianqi to sign their names. Then, they used the reflection stone to record this scene. This agreement was made in 3 copies. After signing, it was locked in a jade box for safekeeping. Of course, what Qin Wanshou and Qiu Yiming didn't know was, the agreement in Yang Dingtian's hands was written with special materials. After 4 hours, the words on it would automatically disappear, leaving only the signatures of the 3 people. Then, it would become a blank agreement, and Yang Dingtian could fill in the contents. He could totally write that Qin City, Divine Weapons Mountain Villa, and Cloud Sky City had formed a military alliance and would live and die together, never betraying each other. A few days later, After repeated warnings to no avail, Qin Wanchou and Xiu Yiming finally led the East and West armies and left Cloud Sky City, returning to their respective territories. And the 100-mile battlefield in front of Cloud Sky City was basically cleaned up. Of course, the so-called cleaned up meant that all the corpses were burned. Therefore, in these few days, Cloud Sky City was filled with thick smoke, and it could be seen clearly from a few hundred miles away. Burning hundreds of thousands of incomplete corpses was a huge job. Luckily, the East and West armies worked together. Otherwise, Cloud Sky City alone would have to burn for a few days. In the end, Yang Dingtian encountered a huge problem, one that was even more terrifying than he had imagined. That was the place where the blood-eyed demonic army died. The blood pool that stored countless deep-sea mystic poison. Because of the evil demon's blood, and the highly toxic blood of the 30,000 blood-eyed demonic army soldiers, that area had become a land of death. In the end, no one could even get within a few hundred meters of that area. Once they got close, they would die from the poison. In fact, at least a few thousand people had died from the poison. These people were all poisoned to death a few hundred meters away from the blood pool. The blood pool in these few miles was constantly corroding the ground, and it was already 400 to 500 meters deep. If this blood pool was not completely dealt with, it would continue to corrode and expand. If this continued, Yang Dingtian was sure that one day, the blood pool would corrode into Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian used all his methods, but he was completely helpless. In order to completely destroy this blood pool, Yang Dingtian even asked his master, Dongfang Minmi, to help him. All the experts with mystic flames condensed their mystic flames to the extreme, and then used them to bombard the blood pool in the air. It has already attracted the greatest attention of our enemies. Yang Dingtian immediately frowned. Once the martial grandmasters came to steal the blood pool, even his master might not be able to stop them. The consequences would be unimaginable. We have to destroy the blood pool immediately. It would be best if it was tonight, Dongfang Minmi said. Yang Dingtian remained silent. How to destroy the blood pool? Even the extremely high-temperature mystic flame could not kill the deep-sea mystic poison. Was there no way at all? No, there was still a way. That was the darkness mystic flame. Yang Dingtian had tried before. The darkness mystic flame could easily devour the energy of the deep-sea mystic poison. It would directly devour and disappear without a trace. Then, it would turn into the energy of the darkness mystic flame. However, that was only a little bit of the deep-sea mystic poison. If the darkness mystic poison completely devoured the blood pool, what would be the consequences? Yang Dingtian did not dare to imagine. It was almost equivalent to Yang Dingtian devouring all the deep-sea mystic poison by himself. What would be the consequences if the darkness mystic flame devoured the astronomical amount of deep-sea mystic poison? Yang Dingtian did not dare to imagine at all. The darkness mystic flame was already evil enough. If it devoured the astronomical amount of deep-sea mystic poison, Yang Dingtian's energy attribute was not inferior to the evil ways. It was even more evil ways than the evil ways. However, Yang Dingtian had no other choice. Okay, master. We will do it right away, Yang Dingtian said. You have already decided? Dongfang Minmi asked. Yes, Yang Dingtian said. Dongfang Minmi said, I will protect you. Then, a sentence sounded in the hearts of both of them at the same time. As long as there is justice in your heart, you can look up to the light even if you are in the depths of hell. In the dark night, one could not even see his fingers. Yang Dingtian and Dongfang Minmi entered the blood pool forbidden area. Yang Dingtian used the darkness mystic flame to wrap his body and entered the blood pool. This place had really turned into hell. The blood pool had already expanded once again. The land within a radius of 5 miles had already been corroded. The blood pool had already become incomparably huge. Around the blood pool, there was a terrifying green smoke everywhere. This smoke was definitely a forbidden area for life. Any life that entered would die without a doubt. How much deep-sea mystic poison was there? In the beginning, it was 50 kilograms, mixed with more than 10,000 kilograms of strong acid. Later, after melting 30,000 blood pupil demonic army, the deep-sea mystic poison crazily devoured blood and continued to grow. At this time, it was already hundreds of thousands of kilograms. Hundreds of thousands of kilograms of mutated deep-sea mystic poison was incomparably hungry. In order to survive, it crazily devoured all energy, even energy that it could not absorb. Therefore, it crazily corroded the land, turning all the soil, stones, and everything into a green poisonous liquid. It became the place where the deep-sea mystic poison lived. 50 kilograms of deep-sea mystic poison could kill more than 30,000 people. How many people could it kill with hundreds of thousands of kilograms of deep-sea mystic poison? Yang Dingtian was completely unable to estimate. Based on pure data, it should be hundreds of millions. Moreover, the deep-sea mystic poison could continue to spread, devour blood, and continue to grow. It could be said that if it was allowed to develop, the deep-sea mystic poison could destroy the entire world and kill all the creatures in the chaotic world. Looking at the green blood pool that was a few miles in radius, and looking at the endless green poisonous fog, Yang Dingtian's heart trembled. When he gave the order to use the biological weapons, he had expected the consequences to be very serious. But he did not expect it to be so serious. If it continued to spread at this speed, within a few months, Cloud Sky City would be uninhabitable. At that time, the green poisonous fog would spread over the entire Cloud Sky City. Of course, because of the recent crazy victory, the blood pool had not caused a huge panic. However, this panic had gradually begun to spread. If it was left unchecked, in less than 10 days, the entire Cloud Sky City would fall into a huge panic. Master, you guard me outside. I will start to use the dark mystic flame to devour, Yang Dingtian said. Okay, Dongfeng Mimi said. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, and then released all the mystic flames in an instant. Whoosh! In an instant, Yang Dingtian's body was completely shrouded in darkness. His entire person had completely turned into an incomparably huge black hole. Then all the energy was involuntarily devoured and crazily sucked in. Of course, this included the deep-sea mystic poison in the blood pool. Even the deep-sea mystic poison was devoured the most ferociously. Yang Dingtian clearly saw that the blood pool within a few miles was trembling violently. Then, an extremely terrifying and stunning green energy suddenly floated out from the blood pool. It condensed in the air, and then drilled into the black hole formed by the dark mystic flame. In an instant, the green color of the blood pool in that area disappeared completely. The poisonous liquid there became transparent and clear. Devour, devour, devour. Devour crazily. Countless deep-sea mystic poison disappeared without a trace after entering the dark mystic flame. It turned into a wisp of mysterious energy, and gradually seeped into every trace of the dark mystic flame. Then little by little, it changed the terrifying dark mystic flame. The dark mystic flame itself was already extremely terrifying. The deep-sea mystic poison was also extremely terrifying. Then, what would happen when the two merged? Yang Dingtian really did not dare to imagine. How much energy could Yang Dingtian's dark mystic flame devour? No idea. That day, after the dark mystic flame devoured part of the demon spirit demonic flame's energy, it instantly matured and became extremely powerful. Of course, it was limited by Yang Dingtian's cultivation. Therefore, the amount of energy that the dark mystic flame could devour within a certain period of time was limited. However, Yang Dingtian did not know the total amount of energy that it could devour. However, it seemed to be limitless. However, Yang Dingtian could feel that the dark mystic flame was extremely excited and was in an unprecedented state of ecstasy. The deep-sea mystic poison was the #1 poison in the world, even though it had been diluted and mutated for a few generations. However, it was still an extremely delicious food for the dark mystic flame. The dark mystic flame was enjoying an unparalleled feast. As for what the dark mystic flame would become after devouring such an astronomical amount of deep-sea mystic poison, only the heavens would know the answer to that. Devour, devour, devour. The darkness gradually faded away. Dawn arrived and the devouring continued. The sun rose and the devouring continued. The sun was high in the sky and the devouring continued. The sun was setting and the devouring continued. Night fell, and the dark mystic flame continued to devour crazily. One night passed. Dawn arrived again. Another day passed. These days, young Dingtian did not appear in Cloud Sky City. His whereabouts became an absolute secret. Of course, all the work in Cloud Sky City was carried out in an orderly manner. Many people realized that the green smoke above the forbidden blood pool had shrunk and faded a lot. Suddenly, the panic of the people in Cloud Sky City began to dissipate. Every night these days, Dongfang Minmi fought countless battles. He had killed no less than 4 or 5 master-level experts. The demonic spirit mist cloak had appeared. The enemy was determined to get the deep-sea mystic poison. In the beginning, the evil demon blood had destroyed 30,000 blood pupil demonic army, shocking countless people. However, the enemy thought that this was a one-time thing, and that Yang Dingtian had some kind of secret weapon. Whether it was Dongfang Minmi or evil ways, they attached great importance to Yang Dingtian's secret weapon. However, they only wanted to collect specimens for research on the blood pool. Later, everyone gradually realized that the blood pool was spreading, and the green smoke that was emitted could kill people. Suddenly, everyone understood that the blood pool itself was a huge weapon, a weapon that could change the world. Therefore, all the forces went crazy, determined to obtain the blood pool. Fortunately, Dongfang Minmi had been guarding it personally. Otherwise, the deep-sea mystic poison in the blood pool would have been lost. However, the current situation was not optimistic. Perhaps the thief at the great grandmaster level would appear soon. By then even Dongfang Minmi might not be able to stop him. 5 days and 5 nights passed. Suddenly Yang Dingtian, who was in the blood pool, opened his eyes. The dark mystic flames devouring of the deep-sea mystic poison in the blood pool had officially ended. The moment Yang Dingtian opened his eyes, his gaze was extremely demonic and terrifying. The dark mystic flame had also undergone a huge and terrifying change. Chapter 497. After 5 days and 5 nights, the darkness profound flame stopped devouring. Yang Dingtian could clearly feel that the black hole formed by the darkness profound flame was getting lighter and smaller. In the end, it completely disappeared. Then, the darkness profound flame that had devoured countless deep-sea Xian poison seemed to have reached its limit and returned to Yang Dingtian's energy reserve. Then it actually lay dormant, as if it was in a deep sleep. This deep-sea Xian poison was indeed powerful. After the darkness profound flame devoured it, it actually needed to sleep to digest it. After that, no matter how Yang Dingtian tried to summon it, the darkness profound flame remained dormant in his energy reserve and did not come out. After the astronomical amount of deep-sea Xian poison was completely digested, what would the darkness profound flame look like? Only God knew. However, at least Yang Dingtian could feel an extremely obvious change. The counterattack of Ning Wuming's dozen or so grandmasters before their deaths had caused huge damage to Yang Dingtian. Although most of the energy had landed on Song Chuanhua's body. However, Yang Dingtian's profound veins and energy reserve had still suffered huge damage. After that, even though Yang Dingtian had taken the holy water elixir to heal his injuries, negotiated with Qin Wanchou and the rest, presided over many things, and finally came to deal with the deep-sea Xian poison's blood pool. But in fact, Yang Dingtian had never fully recovered, according to his master. According to his master, this degree of damage could no longer be compensated with medicine or cultivation. It completely depended on Yang Dingtian's heaven-defying profound veins self-recovery energy, and the Naga royalty's energy to nourish his profound veins. This process might take a few months or even longer. Of course, Yang Dingtian was not very concerned about this. Of course, his personal strength was very important. However, as long as he could defeat the demonized Dongfang Bingling 2.5 years later, it would be enough. The level of his cultivation in these 6 months was not very important. What he cared about was whether Song Chunhua could recover. Song Chunhua's condition was not good. Although her profound veins and energy reserve had stopped bursting, the original cracks had not healed. She had not woken up either. On that day, he had already been injured. In the end, In order to save young Dingtian, he had rushed forward and suffered more than half of the injuries from the 8 grandmasters. Moreover, she doesn't have the 9 young profound veins like young Dingtian, nor does she have the power of the Naga royalty, nor has she undergone the baptism of a large number of Naga profound veins. Therefore, she was unable to withstand such a huge injury. Fortunately, Dongfang Minmi had rushed over at the first moment. He had comforted her with a huge amount of profound energy, suppressing the tearing of her profound veins and energy sea. Otherwise, Song Chunhua would not have lived past that night. But a few days later, she was still lying on the unfreezing bed and did not wake up. At this moment, young Dingtian felt a change. His entire body was filled with surging energy. The cracks in his profound veins and energy sea had disappeared without a trace. It should have taken him a few months to fully recover, but now he was perfectly fine. His originally weak cultivation base was now incomparably vigorous. In fact, he was even stronger than Yang Dingtian at his peak. That day, Yang Dingtian had swallowed the demon spirit demonic fire, and his cultivation base had skyrocketed. His energy sea cultivation base had reached the level of a 2 or 3-star grandmaster. But because he had not cultivated the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, his profound veins cultivation base was still limited to the level of a 9-star 9th grade revered martial artist. At this moment, Yang Dingtian faintly felt that his cultivation base seemed to have broken through. Of course, it was still the cultivation base of the energy sea. If he did not cultivate the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, his profound veins cultivation base and actual combat power might never break through. As for how much his energy sea cultivation base had broken through this time, Yang Dingtian did not know, because when the dark mystic fire was swallowing the deep sea Xian poison, it had also swallowed an almost endless amount of profound energy. Of course, most of the profound energy had been swallowed by the dark mystic fire, but there was still a portion of profound energy that entered Yang Dingtian's profound veins and entered Yang Dingtian's energy sea. Then, Yang Dingtian felt a slight tremor. Therefore, he knew that his energy sea cultivation base had broken through again, but he did not know how much it had broken through. Could the deep sea Xian poison provide profound energy and increase cultivation base? Of course, this was impossible. Then, where did the almost endless profound energy in the blood pool come from? Of course, it was brought by the 30,000 blood pupil demonic army. He did not know what kind of sorcery these 30,000 blood pupil demonic army used to cultivate. Every one of them had the cultivation base of a high-level martial mystic. And when the deep sea Xian poison had completely swallowed their lives, it did not even let go of their energy sea and profound energy. It had directly swallowed them and turned them into its own energy. Therefore, the 30,000 high-level martial mystics' energy sea had all merged into the blood pool. How much profound energy was there? According to the conversion of energy, it was about the energy of hundreds of masters' energy sea. And when the dark mystic fire had swallowed the deep sea Xian poison, it had also brought part of the profound energy into Yang Dingtian's energy sea. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's cultivation base had broken through again. However, at this moment, Yang Dingtian was really helpless. His profound veins had forcefully blocked his cultivation. As a result, he did not know what level his energy sea had reached. For a moment, he could not help but be more eager to reach the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. However, although it was fortunate that his cultivation base had increased, what surprised Yang Dingtian even more was that his injuries had completely healed. His profound veins and energy sea, which should have taken a few months or even 100 years to heal, had completely recovered and even became stronger. This was really incomprehensible to Yang Dingtian. In the end, Yang Dingtian came to a bold and dangerous conclusion. Perhaps it was the deep sea Xian poison that had healed his profound veins? This conclusion was indeed too bold. The deep sea Xian poison was the world's #1 poison. Although this deep sea Xian poison had been derived and mutated for several generations, it could still poison you to death. How could it heal the scars on the profound veins? However, Yang Dingtian's profound veins had been transformed by Naga's profound veins. The deep-sea Xian poison was Naga's last life-saving item. It was Naga's purest energy. Therefore, the deep-sea Xian poison might be a deadly poison to others, but to Naga's profound veins, perhaps, it had a healing effect. Otherwise, how could Yang Dingtian's profound veins be healed? Immediately after, Yang Dingtian discovered another thing that supported this point of view. That was Yang Dingtian was not afraid of the deep-sea Xian poison. Previously, Yang Dingtian was only slightly afraid. But he was still afraid. Therefore, when he used the deep-sea Xian poison to attack, he had to use the dark Xian flame to devour all the deep-sea Xian poison. When he entered the blood pool, he had to use the dark Xian flame to cover his entire body. However, now that the dark Xian flame had entered his energy sea to sleep, he realized that the deep-sea Xian poison did not have any poisonous effect on him. Yang Dingtian was even a little excited after smelling this aura. Could it be that the process of the dark Xian flame devouring the deep-sea Xian poison was also the process of the deep-sea Xian poison healing and cleansing the profound veins, making Yang Dingtian immune to all kinds of poison? In order to prove this point, Yang Dingtian floated towards the depths of the blood pool. Sigh. Yang Dingtian discovered another problem. His dark Xian flame had only devoured half of the deep-sea Xian poison in the blood pool. Half of the blood pool that spanned a few miles was transparent, and the other half was still green. Yang Dingtian carefully flew above the other half of the green blood pool. First, he approached it bit by bit. He already felt more excited, but it did not affect his body at all. Then, Yang Dingtian gradually approached it, and finally, his entire body was completely immersed in the green smoke. In an instant, his entire body surged violently. That kind of excitement almost made him shout wildly. He instantly felt that he was incomparably powerful, that he was invincible. He could not wait to immediately draw his sword, charge to the central state alone, and kill all the evil ways by himself. That kind of excitement, that kind of comfort, it was completely indescribable with words. What did it say? It was like checking the results of the college entrance examination. Out of a full score of 750, 699. It was like writing a love letter to the campus belle for the first time in high school, and she gave you a big heart in return. These pleasures added up, magnified by 10 times, or even 100 times, was what Yang Dingtian felt at this time. Or to put it in a more extreme way, it should be the feeling of injecting the highest purity drug. Under this kind of extreme excitement, Yang Dingtian's mind immediately recovered some sobriety. Then he left as fast as he could. Although the deep-sea Xian poison had no toxic effect on him, but this kind of extreme pleasure, to the spirit, to the willpower, was a kind of huge damage. After quickly leaving, the green smoke seemed to be full of incomparable temptation for Yang Dingtian. It was like a person who was starving to the extreme, and there was a delicious roast duck in front of him, but he could not eat it. Furthermore, after escaping from the green smoke, Yang Dingtian's mood instantly turned gloomy and dejected. This thing, as expected, could not be touched. This was something that belonged to the Naga, and it was too powerful for human beings. After using his strong willpower to suppress the restless state of mind, Yang Dingtian began to look at the half of the blood pool and worry. The dark Xian flame could only swallow half of it. It was now in a deep sleep, and he did not know when it would wake up. What should he do with the rest of the blood pool? Although there was only half of it left, it would still spread to Cloud Sky City in less than a month. This thing was a stimulant to Yang Dingtian, who had the Naga Xian meridians, but to anyone else, it was highly toxic. If one sniffed it from 100 meters away, they would definitely die. Moreover, the enemy was sending more and more experts for this blood pool. Once it fell into the enemy's hands, the consequences would be destruction. Master. Yang Dingtian left the blood pool and came to the periphery of the forbidden area. At this time, Dongfang Minmi was sitting on the ground. Even with the cultivation of a great grandmaster, he looked tired. 4 hours ago, I killed 2 6-star great grandmasters, Dongfang Minmi said. The people sent by the enemy are getting stronger. This blood pool seems to have alarmed the Tiando League. The Tiando League is already preparing to send an observation team to Cloud Sky City to take away the thing in the blood pool. Yang Dingtian felt a chill in his heart. The situation was getting worse. Master, my dark Xian flame has only swallowed half of the deep-sea Xian poison. There is still half left, Yang Dingtian said. But my dark Xian flame is already in a deep sleep. Dongfang Minmi frowned and said, Then what should we do? There is nothing we can do. Gosh, when Yang Dingtian ordered the biological weapon attack, he really did not think of this outcome. He thought that the greatest lethality would come from the mixed strong acid. But who knew that this thing was a mutation of the deep-sea Xian poison? The so-called strong acid was just a byproduct. Moreover, after killing 30,000 blood pupil demonic army soldiers, a few dozen kilograms of deep-sea Xian poison directly became a few 100,000 kilograms. Child, is there really no other way? Dongfang Minmi frowned and said, If there is really no other way, then Cloud Sky City will face a huge crisis. It is even more dangerous than when the army attacked the city. Master, let me think about it, Yang Dingtian said. Be quick, Dongfang Minmi said. Because the Tiando League's observation team is about to arrive, the evil ways will be even crazier. Perhaps tonight, even stronger enemies will appear. I may not be able to withstand them, so it is best to solve this problem before tonight. City Lord, the Tiando League sent the 5th official letter, questioning about the blood pool, Song Lihua said. Yang Dingtian said, This is Cloud Sky City's internal affairs. The Tiando League did not even restore Cloud Sky City's name. They have no right to interfere. Song Lihua said, They ordered us to immediately destroy the blood pool. Otherwise, it will cause a huge disaster. If we cannot destroy the blood pool within 3 days, the Tiando League will forcibly take over the blood pool for the sake of the world's safety. 3 days. When was the last official letter sent? Yang Dingtian asked. Yesterday, Song Lihua said. In other words, the Tiando League's observation team would arrive the day after tomorrow. Okay, I understand, Yang Dingtian said. What about your sister? How is she? Song Lihua shook her head and said, Not very good. She still hasn't woken up. Moreover, the most serious thing is that the energy in her sea of energy is starting to dissipate. Yang Dingtian's eyes instantly narrowed. Her sea of energy was starting to dissipate? If he did not stop it, even if she woke up in the future, her cultivation would have completely dissipated. To Song Chunhua, this was no different from killing her. Immediately, Yang Dingtian walked towards the cave where Song Chunhua was recuperating. Little Tian. The person taking care of Song Chunhua was Madame Shimen. When she saw Yang Dingtian come in, she immediately stood up. Mother-in-law, Yang Dingtian said. In order to prevent Miss Chunhua's sea of energy from dissipating, we put her in a special big jade box. Madame Shimen said. Go and take a look. Then, Madame Shimen left the cave. At this moment on the unfreezing waterbed, there was a snow-white big jade box. Of course, this was just a nice way to put it. More directly, this was a jade coffin. It was similar to the one on little Princess Vulture's back. It was used to prevent the energy from dissipating. Yang Dingtian gently opened the lid. Inside, Song Chunhua was lying inside unconscious. Her sparkling and translucent body rose and fell like a mountain. The curves of Song Chunhua's delicate body were not inferior to any peerless beauty. In fact, they were even more exaggerated. It was just that she had wrapped herself in armor for many years, causing people to forget her characteristics as a woman. No one in the world would dare to believe that under this tomboy's armor, there was such a devilish and even exaggerated figure. Her beauty was actually even more soul-stirring than Song Lihua's. It was just that she always appeared in front of everyone as a man. However, at this moment, there were fine cracks on this almost exaggerated body. The profound veins in every part of her body, especially her sea of energy, were densely packed with mottled cracks. The moment Yang Dingtian opened the lid, countless amounts of energy rushed towards him. This was her sea of energy dissipating. Chunhua, don't worry. I will definitely save you. Yang Dingtian gently caressed her face. His finger brushed past the tip of her nose. Then, he closed the lid to prevent the profound energy from leaking out. In the main hall of Cloud Sky City, only the core members were present. Even the elders of Cloud Sky City were not present. There are 3 things, Yang Dingtian said. First, Chunhua is still unconscious, and her sea of energy has started to dissipate. Second, the blood pool in front of Cloud Sky City contains the mutated deep sea Xian poison. In less than a month, it will spread to Cloud Sky City. Wherever it spreads, it will become a land of death. I used the dark Xian flame to devour it for 5 days and 5 nights, but only half of it was devoured. There is still half left. Third, the evil ways have already sent out countless experts to steal the deep sea Xian poison from the blood pool. The Tiando League has already sent out an observation team to forcibly take our blood pool. Hearing the words deep sea Xian poison, everyone's expression changed. Of course, they had heard of the world's #1 poison and the final power of the Naga race. Everyone knew about the horror of the blood pool, but no one knew that it contained the deep sea Xian poison. Now the enemy only knows that the thing in the blood pool is very powerful, but they don't know that it is the deep sea Xian poison, Yang Dingtian said. The deep sea Xian poison has the ability to rapidly spread, devour, and grow. Once it enters a person's body, it will devour all the blood in the person's body in the shortest amount of time, and turn all the blood in the person's body into the deep sea Xian poison. It can be said that once our blood pool expands, the consequences will be unimaginable. It can even turn thousands or tens of thousands of miles into a forbidden zone for life, Yang Dingtian said. Everyone's expression changed. Before, when they used this so-called biological weapon, they really did not expect the consequences to be so terrible. Song Lihua said, "We must not let the deep sea Xian poison fall into the hands of the evil ways, or the Tiando League." Now the evil ways and the Tiando League are already unclear. Once it falls into their hands, it will be a devastating disaster for the entire world. That's right, Qin Huayu said. We must clean up this blood pool before the Tiando League's observers arrive. No, we have to do it before tonight, Yang Dingtian said. Tonight, the evil ways might send extremely powerful experts to enter the blood pool. Suddenly, everyone present fell into silence. Little Tian, is there really nothing we can do? Madame Shiman asked. There is a way, Yang Dingtian said. I can't guarantee whether it will work or not. But even if this method succeeds, the consequences may be very, very serious. For example, we used the deep sea Xian poison to instantly eliminate the 30,000 blood-eye demonic army. But it brought about the consequences of this blood pool. And if we destroy this blood pool, it will bring about another consequence. A consequence that is 100 or 1,000 times more dangerous than this blood pool. Of course, this consequence may not appear. But once it does, it will be 100 times more dangerous than this blood pool. Suddenly, the scene was swept by like a storm. What consequence? It was actually 1,000 times more dangerous than this blood pool? Yang Dingtian didn't say anything. The consequence was that he might create a real Naga. A real Naga, the half-god race of Naga. A race that destroyed the entire underwater civilization in the ancient times. It might even be a race that directly caused the destruction of the ancient times. Everyone was fascinated by Naga, but if the Naga race really appeared in this world, it would be a devastating destruction to the entire ecosystem. The consequences of this would be immeasurable. Yang Dingtian continued, There's one more thing. When I used the dark Xian flame to devour the deep sea Xian poison, my Xian meridians and energy sea were completely healed. Chapter 498. In this remote valley, other than Bao Bao, there were no other males. Of course, Yang Dingtian often appeared in the valley, but he basically did not enter Dugu Aoshuang's room. But who would have thought that he would suddenly barge in? So when she saw Yang Dingtian come in, she first exclaimed, and then did not immediately cover up. Instead, she anxiously explained. Bao Bao insisted on eating it. Nanny gave it to him, but he did not want it. Madame Yin Yan also did not want it. He kept crying. I had no choice. Dugu Aoshuang was extremely inferior to her own body that was covered in scales. She felt that what she had just done to Bao Bao was a heinous crime. But she did not give it to Bao Bao. and Bao Bao kept crying. So when Yang Dingtian suddenly saw it, she was so anxious and scared that she wanted to cry. However, as the culprit, Bao Bao did not seem to feel anything. After seeing his father come in, he finally opened his mouth and smiled at Yang Dingtian, revealing a few snow-white baby teeth. "Little rascal, Daddy will hug you." Yang Dingtian immediately looked away and stretched out his hand. Bao Bao opened his arms like a little bird, and Yang Dingtian hugged him. This little rascal had quite a few mothers taking care of him. He had been raised to be fair and plump, heavy and heavy. "Come give Daddy a kiss." Yang Dingtian. Bao Bao pouted his wet little mouth and waved it on Yang Dingtian's face, leaving a pile of saliva on Yang Dingtian's face. "Come, let Daddy kiss you," Yang Dingtian said again. Bao Bao moved his pink little face closer. Yang Dingtian kissed him fiercely, and Bao Bao laughed exaggeratedly. Yang Dingtian hugged Bao Bao and played for a while. Then, Yin Yin walked in and stretched out her hand. "Come Bao Bao, come to mommy." Then, Bao Bao heartlessly threw Yang Dingtian away and opened his arms to Yin Yin. Yin Yin carried the baby over and said, "Baby, give mommy a kiss." This was almost everyone's favorite game in the valley, and Bao Bao never got tired of it. Yin Yin and the baby walked out while being intimate with each other. Only Yang Dingtian and Dugu Aoshuang were left in the house. Dugu Aoshuang, as if she had made a big mistake, stood uneasily in front of Yang Dingtian. I won't dare to do it again," Dugu Aoshuang said. "You are also the baby's mother. If he doesn't eat yours, who will he eat?" Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Also in front of the baby, you are the most important. Do you understand? You're the most important person to the baby. I can't compare to you, understand?" "Really?" Aoshuang said. "It's true," Yang Dingtian said. "I've told you a long time ago. You're the baby's first mother." "Yes." Aoshuang nodded vigorously, her beautiful eyes flashing with happiness. "Aoshuang, take off your veil." Yang Dingtian. Aoshuang was stunned. Then her beautiful eyes revealed a pained look. She took off her veil with heavy movements. The moment she took off her veil and revealed her scaly face, Aoshuang immediately lowered her head. Her entire body seemed to want to shrink into the ground. In an instant, boundless feelings of inferiority emerged. She really didn't want to expose even an inch of her scaly face and skin to the air. At any time, she had to hide all the scales on her body. Yang Dingtian stepped forward and gently pinched her chin, making her raise her head. In an instant, tears fell from her beautiful eyes. Then, she began to feel uneasy and began to tremble. "Aoshuang, from my own selfish point of view, I really wish that your scales would never fade. How sexy, how strangely charming." Yang Dingtian laughed. Immediately, Aoshuang's beautiful eyes trembled as she said, "You don't make fun of me like this." "When did I make fun of you?" Yang Dingtian laughed. "Most of my aesthetic views are the same as others, but there is a small portion that is very heavy." These words immediately made Dugu Aoshuang even more at a loss. "Shuang, there's something I need your help with," Yang Dingtian said. "What is it?" Aoshuang raised her head and said, "As long as I can do it." She seemed very excited. She had always felt that she was useless, so as long as she could help Yang Dingtian a little, she would be very excited. "This matter is very important to Cloud Sky City," Yang Dingtian said. "But for you there are two consequences. The first consequence is that you may die, and die very miserably." "Die?" Aoshuang's beautiful eyes trembled. I'm not afraid of death, but I can't bear to part with the baby." "I know," Yang Dingtian said. "The second consequence is that all the scales on your body may fade away." "Really?" Aoshuang's body trembled as she screamed. In an instant, the light that was released from her beautiful eyes shocked Yang Dingtian. It was really difficult for ordinary humans to release such a bright and piercing light. Aoshuang didn't have the strength to truss a chicken, but this gaze was really like the gaze of a 1,000-year demon beast. "Yes," Yang Dingtian said. "Of course, you may become a normal and complete woman. At that time, you will be very beautiful. I believe you know it yourself, but you will definitely be more beautiful than Dugu Fengwu. But there is another possibility. You will even lose your human form." Aoshuang trembled and said, Then what will it become? I don't know because I've never seen it before. Yang Dingtian. All kinds of fantasies appeared in Ao Shuang's eyes. And then they were filled with fear. Yang Dingtian said, "Of course, everything is up to you. I respect any choice you make. However, I want you to make a choice within 2 hours, okay? Because time is very tight." Ao Shuang gritted her teeth and said, "No need, I'm willing to do it." Immediately after, Ao Shuang bravely raised her head and said, "For you, I am willing to do anything. Besides, even if I die, there will still be people who will miss me, right? There are so many people who love the baby. Even if I die, he will still be happy." At this moment, Dugu Ao Shuang seemed to have released all of her courage. Her gaze was as scorching as fire. Yang Dingtian didn't even dare to look straight at her. Ao Shuang's eyes were truly shocking. That kind of light was truly scorching. "I'm afraid that after today, you won't even look at a small figure like me. You might even become a half-god." Yang Dingtian laughed. "You're talking nonsense," Ao Shuang said loudly. Then she gritted her teeth and said, "Before I do this, can I ask you for a favor?" "Speak." "Yang Dingtian, you kiss me. That way, even if I die, I can still taste that feeling," Ao Shuang said. At this moment, even the breath she exhaled was burning hot. Yang Dingtian muttered to himself. Yang Dingtian's attitude instantly defeated all of her courage. Her beautiful eyes instantly scattered as she said, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this." Then, she was about to run out. She didn't have the courage to face Yang Dingtian anymore. Yang Dingtian grabbed her hand and pretended to be shy. "A kiss? Of course I want to, but I have one more request. I don't know if I can say it." Ao Shuang was stunned. You speak. Your scales might completely disappear. I've wanted to touch the scales on your waist for a long time. In the future, when the scales disappear, I won't be able to see them anymore. Can you let me touch the scales on your waist?" Yang Dingtian's half-true and half-fake behavior immediately made Ao Shuang want to burrow into the ground. However, the pain in her heart instantly disappeared without a trace. Then, Yang Dingtian was very serious as he gently kissed her on the lips. Then, he gently caressed the scales on her waist. Of course it wasn't vulgar, but a gentle one. After all, he didn't really want to kill a hoodlum, but wanted to let Ao Shuang disperse the haze in her heart. Yang Dingtian was carrying a large jade box which had an unconscious Song Chunhua lying inside. He then held on to the bashful Dugu Ao Shuang and entered the blood pool forbidden zone. Dugu Ao Shuang still hadn't reacted. He was in a daze floating in the air. He didn't know where to go, nor did he know what was beside him. "Shuang-er, wait here for a while. I'll go treat Song Chunhua first." "Yang Dingtian." "Yes." Dugu Ao Shuang nodded. Yang Dingtian carried the large jade box and carefully flew above the blood pool. At this moment, the entire blood pool was still clearly divided. Half of it was crystal clear liquid, while the other half was green deep-sea Xian poison. Of course, in just a few hours, the half of the deep-sea Xian poison had already spread towards Cloud Sky City. At this rate, in less than a month, Cloud Sky City's walls would be corroded and collapse, and Cloud Sky City would become a land of death. Opening the jade box, it revealed Song Chunhua's crystal clear and exaggeratedly undulating body. Yang Dingtian stretched out his hand and gently sucked the green mist of the deep-sea Xian poison over to his palm. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't dare to directly inject the deep-sea Xian poison into Song Chunhua's body. If Chunhua really couldn't take it and was poisoned to death, then Yang Dingtian would really die 100 times. Even if Song Chunhua couldn't be saved, no one would blame Yang Dingtian. However, Yang Dingtian couldn't blame himself. If such a noble and beautiful life were to die, it would be no different from digging out a piece of Yang Dingtian's heart. He first absorbed the deep-sea Xian poison into his body and into his profound veins. Of course, there was still a little risk. Even though Yang Dingtian's body was floating in the deep-sea Xian poison and wouldn't be poisoned, no one could guarantee that when the deep-sea Xian poison entered his profound veins, he wouldn't be poisoned. However, This risk wasn't within Yang Dingtian's consideration. Whoosh! Wah! The moment he inhaled, Yang Dingtian's body trembled violently. That kind of intense feeling was 10 times stronger than when he was floating in the deep-sea Xian poison. Yang Dingtian's consciousness almost instantly dissipated, and he was completely intoxicated. This thing was really much scarier than getting high. Yang Dingtian poured all of his consciousness into it, pushing the profound Xian poison to circulate in his body, into his energy sea, and then out. After the profound Xian poison circulated through Yang Dingtian's body, it floated out from his right palm. At this moment, the green color had almost disappeared, and was replaced by an almost transparent white mist, gently pulsating. This should be the deep-sea Xian poison that Yang Dingtian used his body and profound veins to cleanse. Sure enough, there were countless life forms jumping around in Yang Dingtian's palm. After being purified, it actually looked pure and beautiful. No one would dare to imagine that this was the extremely terrifying deep-sea Xian poison. Of course, some people might say that since Yang Dingtian wasn't afraid of this deep-sea Xian poison, he might as well swallow the rest of the blood pool by himself. The darkness profound flame barely swallowed half of it. With Yang Dingtian's body and cultivation, it would take him at least 100 years to swallow this much deep-sea Xian poison. Looking at the purified deep-sea Xian poison, Yang Dingtian still fell into hesitation and struggle. This should still be poisonous. Once it entered Song Chuanhua's body and failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. And how high was the probability of failure? Yang Dingtian almost didn't dare to think about this. Just like reviving his master, there was completely no theory to support it, and there was no precedent to follow. It was completely based on Yang Dingtian's crazy theory. Whether or not the deep-sea Xian poison could heal the injury to the profound veins and Qi ocean was completely Yang Dingtian's crazy idea. If Yang Dingtian's idea was wrong then, however, Yang Dingtian already had no other choice. Chanhua, let's take the risk together. Yang Dingtian then suddenly gritted his teeth and directly forced the purified transparent deep-sea Xian poison into Song Chuanhua's Qi ocean. Almost instantly, Song Chuanhua's body began to change. And this change almost made Yang Dingtian's soul fly away, because Song Chuanhua's body almost quickly turned green. Green at the beginning appeared at Song Chuanhua's Qi ocean, then quickly spread, almost covering the entire body in an instant. It was completely lightning fast. Yang Dingtian didn't have any possibility of stopping it, and didn't even have any mental preparation. This was exactly the same as the deep-sea Xian poisoning. In an instant, Song Chuanhua turned into a green beauty. Even her hair and lips all turned green. Yang Dingtian's scalp suddenly went numb. His heart instantly twisted, and for a moment, he even felt that he couldn't breathe. But this green came quickly, and also went quickly. Then this green quickly disappeared. Oh, or rather, it didn't disappear, but condensed at a certain place. First, it condensed at the Qi ocean, and this green crazily rushed to the shattered scars of the Qi ocean. Then, like a magic show, these scars quickly erased. Instantly, the Qi ocean in the lower abdomen became as smooth as a mirror, and those scars disappeared without a trace. Immediately, Yang Dingtian fell into ecstasy. It really worked, it really worked. Yang Dingtian's crazy adventure succeeded again. The facts proved that Yang Dingtian's adventure had enough theoretical support. Deep-sea Xian poison could indeed heal the scars of Naga's profound veins. And Yang Dingtian first used his own body to purify the deep-sea Xian poison, was also correct. But this healing effect quickly stopped, and the scars of Song Chuanhua's Qi ocean in the lower abdomen were about 1/3 healed. Of course, this was because the deep-sea Xian poison's energy was exhausted. In that case, the rest of the matter became simple. Yang Dingtian continuously absorbed the deep-sea Xian poison, and then used his own body and Qi ocean to purify it, and then injected the purified deep-sea Xian poison into Song Chuanhua's body. Then it was completely like performing a magic show. The countless scars of Song Chuanhua's Qi ocean and profound veins were instantly erased piece by piece, disappearing piece by piece, recovering piece by piece. Of course, for Yang Dingtian, it was incomparably comfortable torture. Because every time he breathed in the deep sea Xian poison, that kind of sour feeling was completely indescribable. Yang Dingtian was almost about to fly, and almost rolled his eyes. Every time, he had to use his strongest willpower to suppress it, to remember that he was treating Song Chuanhua's injuries, not taking pills. But even so, Yang Dingtian's spirit was almost convulsing. Moreover, this kind of situation was not only limited to Yang Dingtian. Song Chuanhua's body also gradually reacted, and the reaction was getting more and more intense. Like a demon's delicate body began to twitch, and the hair on her body stood up one by one. Later, even the toes of her feet curled up, and her calves began to twitch. Very obviously, the side effects of the deep sea Xian poison not only was effective on Yang Dingtian, it was also effective on Song Chuanhua. Because Song Chuanhua's body also had the energy of Naga's profound veins. Just like this, Yang Dingtian used the strongest willpower in his body to completely erase Song Chuanhua's scars and completely heal her qi ocean and profound veins. Yang Dingtian was almost about to collapse. All the pores on his body were desperately breathing, and that kind of feeling, as if his soul was about to scatter, whipped every inch of his soul. It was really terrible. If in the future, Yang Dingtian became addicted to this thing, then it would really be troublesome. After healing Song Chuanhua, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to close his eyes and desperately use his powerful willpower to suppress this heavenly feeling. He desperately wanted to minimize the damage this energy had on the soul and spirit to the minimum. At this moment, Song Chuanhua, who was trembling all over in the jade box, suddenly opened her eyes. This was really a completely unfamiliar Song Chuanhua. Song Chuanhua's gaze would never be so crazy, so fanatical, so trembling. Immediately, Song Chuanhua's body suddenly sat up from the jade box, looked at the floating Yang Dingtian, opened her arms and suddenly pounced over. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.